January 22nd. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yeah, now I got you. I had to change
All right.
Here you go.
All right. It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, January 22nd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. DJT in office. This starts day 3. And we are still broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. at the Heritage Foundation as we wrap up our inauguration coverage. Bill, it's been a wild week. Holy cow. I feel like it should be a Friday, but it's a Wednesday. So but we've got a great show lined up. We've got the Douglas County contingency. So George Teal is going to be here along with Abe, Leydon, and Kevin Van Winkle are swinging by. You know, they came out as a group to send a very clear message that Douglas County wants to partner with the DJT administration on illegal immigration stuff. By the way, the breaking news over the night, some of this coming in about what Denver Public Schools plans to do. If a federal immigration official shows up, they plan to implement a lockdown, not to prevent any harm from happening within the school, but to keep the immigration officials out. Are they just pulling another Mike Johnston? We'll get into that as well. And then Jeff Crank is slated to join us a little bit later, Congressman from Congressional District 5. That's the Colorado Springs area. So absolutely jam-packed shows. We cover the latest on Donald Trump's executive orders, how this is going to impact Colorado, how Colorado officials are responding to this. There's no better coverage on what this means for your community than here on 710 KNUS. So make sure you stick around. Bill, how you doing this morning?
Oh, not bad. Little under the weather, honestly, but that's okay. It is what it is.
Sorry to hear that.
No worries. It is what it is. How are you?
Bill,
how's
Bill
DC
doesn't stop working.
No, ever.
Bill does not stop working.
So can't be sick.
Contribute.
No. Yeah. So how are you doing? How's DC treating you? What's been fun? What's been neat as far as, you've been there before, lived there for a while. Have you, going back, it's never the same. What are your thoughts and ideas after being there?
Oh, it's always fun to see. It's fun to see the young people around. This is maybe shocking to most people, but Washington, D.C. is run by 25-year-olds. Because they show up, they're so motivated, they're passionate to change the world. And then by the time you're 35, you just kind of want to hang out with your kids more. So
and reality
people by that age
face.
Are ready to move on. But when you're 25, 26, 27, you're willing to live in an apartment with 8 other people, pay half your salary to your apartment rent. That's fun. And it's an exciting city. We were around yesterday taking pictures, kind of celebrating my wife and I's 17th wedding anniversary, which was yesterday.
Oh, really? Congratulations.
That was on Monday, actually. But yesterday was the day we were able to celebrate. Nice. So
I bet that was neat because there are a lot of places where you guys have history. So there are a lot of places around town. Yeah. They're like, oh, remember when we did this? Remember when we did that? That's really cool. Elaborate,
well-known or secret Asian food places like P.F. Chang's. That's where we went.
Oh, that's funny.
Because that's where, when Nicole was done with law school, we both went to school at night. I went to grad school at GW. She went to George Mason. We'd meet up at P.F. Chang's for dinner at like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, that's
when we didn't have kids, but now we do. And we got lots of animals. So we're going to be wrapping up today's coverage here from the Heritage Foundation, then heading back. I'll be back in studio tomorrow. Hopefully Billy can get some rest and feel better. But it's been an absolutely wild trip. And, expectations of Trump and are still very optimistic. People excited to see the executive orders coming in. But this is where I want to hear from you. We're going to be talking about some of Trump's latest executive orders, including the birthright citizenship executive order. That has kicked off a constitutional challenge coming from Phil Weiser, the Attorney General of Colorado. So where do you land on this? Do you think you can just walk into this country, have a child, and that child is an American citizen? Or do you agree with the Trump side of things that originally, that amendment, the 14th Amendment, was to deal with slaves and Native Americans and never anticipated people crossing our border to the tune of 6 million illegal immigrant children being born in this country and providing them with citizenship. So where do you fall along this line? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 23 degrees and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 33. Our top story, the attorney appointed to represent the suspect in a series of stabbings in downtown Denver says her client is suffering from mental illness. A court filing last week by public defender Ariana Burnett sought to limit media coverage of the Elijah Cottle case. She said pretrial publicity should be limited because Cottle suffers from obvious severe and debilitating mental illness. The stabbing attacks on January 11th and the 12th left 2 people dead and 2 others injured. Cottle is due in court on Friday. The largest police union in the U.S. says it's deeply discouraged by DJT's pardons of J6 rioters. The Fraternal Order of Police and the International Association of Chiefs of Police didn't mention the Capitol riots by name, but said recent pardons by both Trump and Biden, allowing criminals to go free, send a dangerous message that the consequences for attacking law enforcement are not severe, potentially emboldening others to commit similar acts of violence. On Tuesday, NBC's Peter Alexander was critical of Trump's pardons.
We won this election in a landslide because the American public is tired of people like you that are just one-sided, horrible people in terms of crime. You don't talk about all the people that have been killed. And
sounded bad on my end. I'm going to take that off there. Try to it was a little crackly. I'll get it reset, and hopefully we can hear the other sound that we have in this newscast. Millions across the South are waking up to the threat of snow and ice and brutally cold temperatures, and there is snow in North Florida on the Gulf of America, Pensacola. Some places are seeing snowfall records fall that have stood for more than a century. At least 30 million people are under snowstorm warnings through this morning from Texas into Georgia and Virginia. Harvard is settling lawsuits filed by Jewish students who claimed the college did not protect them from anti-Semitism. Harvard on Tuesday confirmed the settlement, which was for an undisclosed amount. Here's Trump again.
we won this election in a landslide because the American public is tired of people like you that are just one-sided, horrible people in terms of crime. You don't talk about all the people that have been killed and what happens to those murderers. Murderers get no time. You take a look at some of these DAs. They go after political opponents, but they don't go after people that shoot people in this.
Once again, yesterday, a fire hose of information in D.C., everything going on. One of the stories, the woke bishop, Marianne Buddy is her name, at the pulpit Tuesday, as she goes after Trump, and everyone had to sit there and listen to this.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God.
She should have stopped there.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens, or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes.
Some do.
And are good neighbors.
Some are.
They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues.
Oh, God. It goes on and on. I'll blow her up later. I didn't hear her mention Jesus at all in that whole entire thing. And that makes me skeptical. She's ridiculous. She's a cult leader. That's what I have to say. Netflix subscription prices are on the rise. The streaming giant announced Tuesday the standard plan without ads is increasing by $2.50 to $17.99 per month. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Ichiro Suzuki is now in the Baseball Hall of Fame, along with CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner. Ichiro, the first Japanese player selected to Cooperstown, missed being a unanimous selection by just one vote. Nuggets run past the Sixers, 144-109 last night. And speaking of Philadelphia, Philly's mayor, Sherelle Parker, she's all fired up about the Eagles taking on the Commanders in the NFC Championship game this Sunday at a press conference with a cheer. Hey, let's spell Eagles. It's her Dan Quayle moment.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
All right, one more time.
Let's go, Birds!
One more time.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
Okay. She forgot the A in Eagles, and it just went downhill from there. Crashed and burned. 22 in Centennial, 21 in Northglenn, 23 in Denver. It's Wednesday, hump day. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and cool. Temperatures upper 20s and low 30s in Denver today. A cool northwest breeze. Lows tonight upper single digits to low teens. Partly cloudy to cloudy. A high near 30 on Thursday. Teens Thursday night. Now temperatures Friday briefly warm up. Back to the lower to mid 40s. Colder Friday night. Light snow after midnight. Lows in the mid teens. Light snow likely Saturday and cold. Highs only 20s. Near 10 with light snow Saturday night. Flurries and cold only 20s Sunday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So, Bill, you and I have sat through a lot of sermons in our life. You were a good Catholic schoolboy, attended Mullen. I don't think, with the exception of one time, and that was Mother Teresa at the National Prayer Breakfast, where a religious figure utilized their platform to directly confront the policies of somebody in the room. And truth be told, pro-lifers cheered that on when Mother Teresa turned towards Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and basically said, stop killing innocent children with abortion. But yesterday's sermon message directed right at the president from the pastor, not celebrating him, not encouraging him, but directly challenging his message. What were your thoughts on that, Bill?
Yeah, it was an interesting platform and time in order to do it, but okay. It was that I applaud the spine that it took in order to say that. I know that everybody's all like, oh, she wasn't being, showing fealty to our new emperor. Okay. I've heard things coming out of the pulpit from a wide variety of religions and all the flavors of Christianity for the last decade that shock me and make me, turns my stomach a little bit based on things. I mean, I heard, there were a whole bunch of people that came out and talked about what Donald Trump was going to bring and angels that were going to be unleashed on the population and what was going to happen and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so we have conflated our religion and our politics, and we seem to think that is okay. But if anybody is worried or upset about the fact the pastor was there and called out Trump to his face during the sermon, Jesus did the same things. He went into the temple and called them out. He overturned the tables, money changers. He was the guy that stood in their faces and called them out. So I have found it very strange in the past 12 to 16 hours, the number of people that feel what she's doing is ungodly when we have examples of Jesus doing just that. You can disagree with her message or what she's saying, but saying that she's not following the path, I disagree. My opinion, though. How about yours?
So look, I've never, ever been afraid of mixing politics and religion because they're all about trying to answer the most serious questions we're facing as human beings. So what I find in it is the hypocrisy that comes from the folks on the side that go, we should never be intermixing religion and politics. There's a strict separation. There's a big wall, not at the southern border, but between church and politics. And then when they get a chance to face the president of the United States wearing religious garb in a religious ceremony that's supposed to be spiritual, they drive the political Mack truck right in through it to talk about how their religion inspires all their political positions, and it is their moment to have a spine, stand up for their religion and their politics, all right, with the president of the United States sitting there. I don't have a problem with intermixing religion and politics, and when people oftentimes criticize me for doing that, I go, thank God Martin Luther King didn't take that advice, because his politics and his faith were all intermixed. Same with William Wilberforce, same with Mother Teresa. So to me, it's not the intermixing of politics and religion that's ever been a problem. I just find it interesting that the people that criticize it are right now very happy to have that pastor speak directly to Donald Trump in a religious ceremony with her politics. So that, combined with the criticism of, quote, Christian nationalism, because that was a full display of Christian nationalism, of taking her faith, overlaying it with politics, wanting America to reflect her faith. All that stuff was just on full display during that sermon. So it's the critique of Christian nationalism interfacing or interweaving politics and religion. And then when their side gets to do it, they applaud it and say she's got a spine and she stands strong.
See, so I disagree on that one. I disagree on that one because in the politics side, what I'm talking about is that Trump is God's chosen one, that he has been anointed, that somehow he is different and more special than us. The idea that somehow God's hand saved Trump during that the first assassination attempt, that's the part in which I find that to be absolutely stomach turning. Because if
really, you don't think God saved his life?
No, because if he did, that means God killed the other guy, the firefighter. God decided he needed to die that day. He decided at that moment that the firefighter, who's a wonderful person and has a family, needed to perish? If God had the power to save Trump, why didn't he save the fireman too? Why didn't he change the trajectory of the bullet? Why didn't he make the fireman move as well? If God's hand moves Trump, why did he ignore the fireman? That's where I push back on this. That's where I push back on the politics and the religion coming together. We don't allow our religion to influence our politics, and we can, as reasonable people, come to different conclusions. But to me, it is a blasphemy. These people sitting here talking about how God anointed Trump and saved his life at that event. That, to me, is tantamount to blasphemy, because then you are saying God decided that fireman, who by every measure is a good man, needed to die, and that God wouldn't use his power
well, I don't know, he
to save
needs
him.
to die, but
Sure,
God chose it. So
yeah, he chose he needed to die.
But why
He
why
needed to
do
die.
you feel like, so in your worldview, God doesn't interfere on a daily basis? I mean, he's not active, like, or he just kind of picks and chooses? Help me understand your understanding and your belief that God is active in these.
No, I didn't say that God is active there. I believe that the world has been set in motion, that God has put influence and signposts to us inside of our daily lives. Some we see, some we ignore. But the idea that he's reaching down and actively making sure at that point that we are either going to suffer punishment or have joy, I disagree with that, because he already knows the plan. He doesn't have to. All of that has been set in motion. When everything started, when the universe was created, everything has been set forward. He knows. We don't. He still gives us free will to make the choices, but he knows the choices we're going to make. Yes. So he has no reason. It's just like the crap when people come down. We had the guy yesterday talking about how it was God's will from the Russian Orthodox Church, how it was because the Russians have embraced abortion and other stuff, and that's why God was helping the Ukrainian missiles shoot them. No, that's not part of the deal. If you're a Christian, that is not part of the deal.
So help me understand what's not part of the deal. God intervenes in wars?
That God comes down and punishes you for your bad behavior during our life right here. No, it's not the deal. That's not what you sign up for as a Christian. So that's part of it.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of goes back and forth. So there was a lot of debate early on when Jesus was walking around. Think about the boy that was blind, right? And the people at the time were asking, was it because, like, who sinned in his family that this boy was born blind? And it's not clear cut, because in some cases, like David's first child with Bathsheba, so he cheats, right? And he has the adulterous affair with Bathsheba, and I believe the first child dies, and that was seen as a form of punishment because of David's infidelity with Bathsheba and the terrible things he did to Bathsheba's husband. But then when Jesus intervenes in the blindness of the kid, and everyone's going, well, whose parents sinned? Jesus says this kid was not punished because of sin. He is going to be healed to reveal God's glory. So I don't think it's clear cut. I don't think you can say that all bad things happen independently of God's punishment for somebody's sin. Because I think it did happen to David and Bathsheba.
But that's prior to the death of Jesus. That is not. I mean, it's early, but here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem that I've got is, what was the message at the core of the crucifixion? What was the reason that God sent his only son and that he was crucified on the cross? What was the reason behind that?
Right, for the forgiveness of our sins, the atonement. Right.
Yeah, and that's not just up until then, right? It's not. We didn't put a pin in it there, and it's not just the sins that we sometimes commit. It was supposed to be for all of our sins. God knows all of our sins that we are going to commit on this world. Why in the hell would he come down here and punish us when he's already forgiven us? That doesn't make any sense. Makes no sense. You
Well,
wouldn't as a father. No, Jeff,
because
you wouldn't as a father come in and say,
Right.
you know what? I forgive you for stealing the car, son or daughter. I forgive you for doing that. And then 2 weeks later, come in and punish them for it. That's ridiculous. And that's the problem.
It has to
that's
do.
the problem.
No, so it has to do with the nature of atonement. The nature of atonement, absolutely, Billy, has to do with your eternal salvation, right? So yes, you are rescued from eternal damnation and suffering and hell,
but on one condition.
But the Bible oftentimes talks about how God punishes, quote, punishes those he loves to guide them. So if you do something wrong, for instance, it's not like God is just totally removed from the situation and allows you to continue to live your life. Oh, because Christ died 2,000 years ago. He still intervenes on a daily basis. And the Bible often talks about the wages of sin being laid down on generations 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you may deal with punishment here on earth for, doing something wrong, like let's say you assault somebody or you rape somebody.
But he already forgave
you go
our
to
sins.
jail.
But
you go to jail for those. You're punished for those.
That's on earth of the flesh. That's not a punishment from God. So why would God forgive our sins? Yeah. Yes.
You sure that the structures that have been set up, like government and those types of things, aren't punishments from an active, loving God?
Yeah. Yes. I'm certain of that. Yes. This is
I
the
would see
earthly.
that as.
No. Well, so you're saying that then why is God allowing the Taliban to exist?
Right. So why does God allow evil? Right.
Yeah, why?
All those things, cancer,
why?
Abortion, all that stuff.
Again, if he is this active in coming in and actively changing our lives all the time, why would he do that? Now, the issue being, now I understand your issue of the idea of when you have bad actions and then having consequences. That is part of the deal that God set up. But also the part is those sins take you away from the truth of God. And that's when you encounter difficulties. That's not God coming down and saying, I'm going to trip you right here. I'm going to make sure you have a flat tire here. I'm going to make sure you're going to experience this here. No, that is a consequence of going away from the umbrella of God's love when you're outside the bubble. That's the consequence. It's not God actively trying to punish. That's why I disagree with it. Because if he is actively punishing us on earth, he's broken the promise of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. He said he forgave us, and we have to atone for our sins. We have to atone for our sins after death. We settle up with the dealer. We settle up with the casino when we meet him at the other side. That's when we settle up. It's all based on how we place our chips, how we place our bets, and how we live our lives here. Then everything comes down and the score sheet is tallied up. And that's when the determination is made. And everything else is up to you. And you can get closer to God, and there can be more joy and happiness in your life. And you can get away from God, and there can be more sadness and more disappointment and more challenges in your life. That's part of the deal that he set up. That's how it exists. He's not coming down here and causing a hurricane because we allow abortions. But that's what Pat Robertson said.
Really?
And he's wrong.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think God punishes in those realms? Yeah, I disagree. I do. I think I think God is active on a regular basis. Now, not everything that's bad that happens is a punishment of God.
Then how do you know?
But I don't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Then how do you know
the idea that it's totally removed, right? That God just kind of set this up is what's called the watchmaker belief of God, that God just kind of built the watch, got it running, and then backed off from it. I think is a wrong understanding of God. Now, can I explain everything?
How do you know where God intervenes and he doesn't? How do you possibly make that determination other than our own tiny human brains trying to interpret things and make sense of them? At one time, we thought
that's all of human existence. I know. Is our tiny little brains trying to interpret things.
Maybe perhaps we can't understand the complex nature of God, yet we're assuming these punishments are of his, despite what Jesus told us in his sacrifice on the cross, despite what we already know. Our ignorance allows us to come to the wrong conclusions. And that's fine. That's what happens.
Well, it could absolutely. But I don't think you can just put God as indeterminate, distant in all these things, and they just kind of randomly happen, right? I don't think that's a fair reading of the Bible either. So let's, like, for instance, Romans 13, right? Where it says, Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. There is no authority. I mean, I'm looking at communist China and the persecution of the people there. You look at World War II Germany. You look at all the problems that our world is faced with, really bad leaders. Colorado, for instance, and the fact that we abort 70 kids a day. I mean, I sit there and I go, I can't explain that. I look at scripture and I go, there's no authority except that which God has established. So God is in the midst of all this. And by faith, I have to work through this. But would love for other folks to join the conversation. Welcome to Billy and Jeff's college bar discussion on the nature of evil and God's interaction with mankind.
And let me outline as well. And let me outline as well. This is why I was asked to relieve religion class all the way from elementary school all the way through college. Yeah. I was asked to leave religion classes because of these type of perceptions that I have. And I'm not saying I'm 110% right. I'm saying this is how I see the world. And I push back strongly against some of these conclusions because I don't see it the same way. And that's fine. I know other people are going to come to
text messages coming in. Bill, you can't prove that it wasn't God's will.
I don't have to.
It's a point from a person's perspective.
I don't have to prove it.
Training from
I don't have to prove it wasn't. Catholic. I don't have to prove it wasn't. You have to prove the positive. If you claim an affirmative action, if you claim an affirmative, something happens and it's a causational relationship, you have to prove it. I don't have to prove it doesn't exist. I don't have to prove that Bigfoot didn't come over there and tip over your tree in front of your house. You have to prove it was Bigfoot. If you make the positive claim, you make the affirmative claim, burden of proof is on you. That's how it works. That's just how the world works. That's how logic works. I don't have to prove something didn't happen. We don't have anybody rounding people up and say, prove you didn't kill someone. What are you going to do there? You don't have to prove a negative. I'm sorry. I honor your shared religion, but you don't have to prove a negative. It's not how the world works.
All right. Feel free to join the conversation. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order temporarily suspending all U.S. tax dollars from being given to foreign countries for 90 days pending reviews. The reviews will be looking at whether the assistance programs fall in line with the America First mission and if they actually benefit Americans. This means all money or aid being sent to Ukraine will immediately stop. The order, which is one of hundreds that Trump has already signed, says the foreign aid industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interest and, in many cases, antithetical to American values. And he said they, quote, serve to destabilize world peace by promoting ideas in foreign countries that are directly inverse to harmonious and stable relations, meaning the U.S. is getting bad press in the very places Americans are sending hundreds of billions of dollars. Dangerous winds have returned to Southern California as new wildfires broke out and a pair of major Los Angeles area blazes burned for a third week. Forecasters warn that gusts could peak at 70 miles an hour along the coast and 100 miles an hour in mountains and foothills. Smaller fires erupted in San Diego County, and one has led to evacuations. Meanwhile, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass has ordered crews to start prepping to shore up hillsides and install barriers to protect scorched neighborhoods from toxic ash runoff ahead of potential rain this weekend. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Billy and I lighten it up. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony, what'd you think of the sermon directed right at the president yesterday?
Well, actually, before I get there, I was calling to really talk about his executive order to release everybody, the J6 hostages. But I was taken by your conversation here that you've had over the last 15 minutes or so. And I think if Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Hamilton and Thomas Paine were sitting in a car right now listening to your position, they would throw up. That is not how they conceived our Constitution. They set up this separation of church and state for a reason. But if I'll play along with you, if God really did give us Trump, then I could make a better argument that he's punishing us than he is rewarding us. He's punishing us, giving us somebody. Would he? Would he?
After
how
the
would
last
he go
4
from
years
Jesus,
with Joe Biden?
How would he go from Jesus to Trump? It's like Plan B. It's like him throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And I don't think that's what we think God is doing, is just guessing. I'm going to give them somebody without a moral compass and let him guide and lead this nation that's so corrupt. Two wrongs can't make a right.
How do you know Donald Trump doesn't have a moral compass?
I would only say that his behavior, his talk about women in general, his bragging about peeking in on the girls in their dressing room, grabbing women where anytime he wants, talking about his daughter's breasts on national television, and we're just getting started. Ripping off students and having his school closed, ripping off his own charity for self-dealing. We can do this all day. This is what he is.
So you expect the president to be a perfect person?
Oh, I didn't. That's not even close to perfect. That's not even close to perfect.
Well, I know.
This is a guy who's
you're talking about Joe Biden,
who cares
Joe
only
Biden
about himself.
I mean, Joe Biden pardoned his son, who was spending $1.6 million on crack cocaine.
I want to bring this back.
Thousands of dollars on
all right,
women.
I'll tell you what.
And he got a full pardon from Joe Biden.
Let's punish his Trump's son-in-law for the $2.5 billion that he's picked up from the Saudis, and now picked up another one from the Saudis.
But I'm interested as to why you condemn, Tony, I'm interested as to why you condemn the morality of Donald Trump and totally ignore the immorality of Joe Biden, and other folks in the Democrat Party. Why is it only on the Republican Party you condemn?
90% of what you say has no basis in truth. So
really? Ted Kennedy killing a woman, Mary Jo Kopecki. I mean, he was in the Senate for his entire career, got to lead the state of Massachusetts.
And God will judge all these people when they get there. God will judge when they get there.
But you seem to be focused in on the fact that Donald Trump has had moral failings while completely ignoring Democratic moral failings.
I didn't ignore Kennedy. Kennedy didn't make it to the presidency either, did he? I'm not justifying anybody's behavior. I'm not justifying Clinton and what happened in the White House. But that doesn't make Trump right, and Trump does it out of his pure narcissism. He could care less about anything but himself. And so I just cannot buy into the idea that God gave us Trump. That is a startling notion. No more did I say that God gave us Kennedy or God gave us Clinton.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
I'll stay with
the Bible.
Founding Fathers.
Tony, is the Bible an authority for you? I mean, do you take it as authoritative?
No, I don't. I don't take the Bible as authority. Man wrote it, rewrote it, wrote it over again and again and again. Many things written long after people had died. God's work and his word is the universe. It's everything we have around us. That's God's work.
Like
That's
Donald
God's
Trump.
work. We all get to see that. Everybody on the planet gets to see God's work. I mean, have you ever noticed that there's nothing in the Constitution that refers to Jesus? It was Jefferson who said, I don't believe Christians are any more right than those that follow Islam. So we're not. He doesn't.
I mean, you hold him in authority, but there's plenty of signers that were regular church attendees. In fact, most of the state constitutions at the founding of this country had explicit religious tests.
Under God, they believe in one God. They were deists. For the most part, they were deists.
Tony,
yes, that's true.
Your public education has failed you, unfortunately. No, a handful of them were deists. A vast majority of the founders of this country were regular church attenders who believed in Jesus Christ. And if you go back, just go look at the original constitutions of the founding of these states, of these 13 states. Nearly all of them had religious tests in them, that you were a regular church attender, that you followed the teachings of Jesus. That was part of the foundations of this country. James Madison said our Constitution was only for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate to any other. This was a Christian country at its founding, and that's what helped lead to its success. Tony, I've got to get to You Choose the News. Thanks for the call. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This is the part of the program where we take a quick moment for some levity instead of debating what theologians have been debating for 2,000 years. Billy, let's give the folks you choose the news.
Yes, just like the sorbet at that real fancy restaurant none of us can afford, this is going to be a palate cleanser. What we call You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. I've spent moments this morning scouring the interwebs for stories about us humans because we do really stupid things. It's an easy job. And then adding more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why? Because nobody in charge has any idea we are wasting valuable airtime. So this is a secret just between all of us. So shh, don't tell anybody. Alrighty. Now, joining us from the news department is Blake Olson. Jeff is in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, here are your stories this morning. Headline number 1, fighting the DEI. Headline number 2, who's your daddy? Headline number 3, pretend body shaming. And headline number 4, Winnie wants a big hug. Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir.
Let's start with who's your daddy?
Yeah. Who's your daddy? The manager of a Korean coffee chain is receiving some very serious backlash from both employees and customers after reminding workers, hey, who's your daddy? Recently, the manager at a Korean coffee shop, Gongcha, had said, employees, if you're traveling and you're involved in an air crash, if your plane's going down, call me first, then call your family. Much more important to call me. He actually said, did you see the plane explosion today? This happened on the day that the worst airplane accident happened on a flight from Bangkok to South Korea. On that day, when 179 people were killed, the manager of the coffee shop said, hey, if a crash happens, and I'm quoting, send me a message saying hire an intern first before contacting your mom and dad. Do not be absent.
What?
Yes.
Why? I don't understand that.
He wants you to know who your daddy is. That's basically what it was. Who's your daddy? Yes. So he said, nope, I'm sorry.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. So if you're about to be shot or something by someone or stabbed,
right, I know.
Yeah, you need to call in at work first saying, I'm not going to be in tomorrow. Then you can call all your loved ones. I know. I didn't make the rules. Alrighty. Blake Olson in the news department. Fighting the DEI when he wants a big hug or pretend body shaming.
Fighting the DEI.
Yeah, we got to fight the DEI, and we're doing this right here in Denver, Colorado. Our Colorado Supreme Court has ruled that 5 Colorado elephants may be majestic, but they do not have a legal right to pursue their release from the zoo. The highest court just ruled yesterday that the elephants at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and the local Denver Zoo, while are majestic, wonderful creatures full of their own thought and free will, they're not humans. So, Unfortunately, the legal question boils down to whether or not you're a human. And because the elephant is not a human, the elephants do not have standing to bring a habeas corpus claim to the court.
That's
unfortunate.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm only human.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of like, that's fine. They're elephants. They're not, it's, it's like they're delicate. They're saying things like, trees are now people and lakes and, no, they're not. They're not. Yep. They're not. No. Okay. That'll surprise some people out there. All righty.
Yeah.
Right. Final choice this morning, sir. Winnie wants a big hug or pretend body shaming.
Winnie wants a big hug.
Yeah, Winnie does want a big hug. Those of you that are A.A. Milne fans will remember Winnie the Pooh's quote that a hug is always just the right size. But sometimes you just can't be in the mood for hugging. So that's why packets of honey laced with erectile dysfunction drugs sold as an all-natural aphrodisiac are now being seized in record quantities in France. Authorities are warning customers that taking these are possible will give you serious side effects because they don't know exactly what's being mixed into the honey. French customs officials said earlier this week a record 31,000 tons of illegally imported honey, touted as an all-natural sexual enhancement, are tainted with drugs like Viagra, but they don't know the quantities or anything else, so they can't tell you what it's going to do to you medically. If it lasts for more than 3 hours, call someone and brag about it. The packets of honey and gel are sold as shots or sticks under names like Black Horse or Biomax. Sometimes you can actually buy them inside of nightclubs. I wonder where that is. The use of aphrodisiac honey has increased in recent years. Officials are warning of potentially serious health risks and unwanted children. Things are not listed on the label sometimes. They often contain chemical products that are substances that are found in the erectile dysfunction drugs. But again, we don't control for the amount or have anything like that. In 2021, health officials warned of several cases where people had ingested honey laced with these aphrodisiacs, and it cause convulsions, cerebral hemorrhages, and acute kidney injuries. Yeah.
Oh,
also,
no.
some people got lucky, I guess, too. But that's, side effects. All right. That's the end. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, Jeff. Oh, I got to go say some, Hail Marys for what I've done last
Hail
hour.
Marys, I was going to say, especially after the last hour. When we come back, we'll continue your phone calls and texts. The Douglas County delegation is swinging by the Heritage Foundation as well. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, January 22nd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, alongside Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history, and DJT is your president. So let's get after it. We got a whole show for you plan for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So pick up the phone, give us a call, join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-515. Yesterday, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, all the dignitaries attending a church service, a worship service at the National Cathedral. And Bill, let's play what the audio was of the woman that gave the sermon there.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Donald Trump responds on a post late last night. The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone, not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal immigrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It is a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and an uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. Does she owe the public an apology? Where do you fall along these lines? Let's go to the phone lines. Ron Greeley. Good morning, Ron. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Wow, there's so much to be said, and I'm going to try to condense it, but no, Trump did great. That lady does owe an apology. What religion was this? Catholic?
No, she's an Episcopalian. Yeah, so she's Church of England.
Yeah.
Okay,
no, that's Anglican,
because
sorry.
I do have problems with female ministers and stuff like that, simply because I go off of what the Bible teaches. So, and yes, you can tell she was LGBTQ. Goodness gracious, to sit up there and take that few seconds and use it to scold already our president is despicable, because Trump is so right as far as you've got so much more wrong coming in than you do good. Do you guys agree with that?
Explain that to me. Help me understand. What do you mean by so much more wrong coming in than good or right? What do you mean by that?
The criminals, the fentanyls, the human trafficking, when you've got thousands of children unaccounted for, and then they're over here griping, wondering, well, how come you're going to break up families? It's like, these families have been broken up long before, and you haven't said a thing. You haven't whispered a thing. And now you have them talking about separating a child from their parent, but yet nothing about the other. That is horrendous. And And when Jeff was talking to that other guy earlier saying, how come you ignore what's going on with the Democrats, but you're trying to chastise Trump, is a home run. And I run into that all the time. You can tell them these points and they just glaze over it. It's almost like you're talking to a wall making those points. And nobody, when I say nobody, I should say a majority of the Democrats ignore the facts. And they ignore the negativity and what is going on. And their hate is still visible. I don't think it's anywhere near what it was when Trump was in office first. I think this boycotting, all that, is going to really fizzle out because Carrie Underwood hit a grand slam with her performance and trying to unite, which I think we need to do.
Ron, I got a question for you, Ron. Was there any hate coming from the GOP during the Biden administration or the Obama administration, in your opinion?
See, you just did what I said.
No,
you
I
ignored
just want to know.
Everything that I said.
No.
And you're zooming in.
No, Ron.
Way to go, Bill.
No, Ron, I'm asking you if you're consistent intellectually. I didn't say that you were wrong about hate that was directed towards Trump. You're jumping to a conclusion.
It's all the way around,
you're jumping.
Bill.
No, Ron, you're jumping to conclusions. I never said there wasn't. And if it makes you feel better, I will say yes, there is a lot of hatred, and much of it that is uncaused and shouldn't be directed towards Trump that is directed towards him. Do you feel, but you said it was just directed towards Trump. I'm curious about your intellectual consistency. Did you feel there was hate coming from the GOP during the Biden administration and the Obama administration in the same ways?
Hate, no. Slamming,
there we go. Okay, there we go.
Oh, no.
Nice. Good
Slamming,
job.
absolutely.
Good job.
You know,
Okay.
they're
Nicely done.
Come on. You really think that when they were talking about Biden and his problems that they were lying? Do you think they were saying it out of hate or truth? Truth. Of course they were. So that's the difference. What they're saying about Trump is out of lies. What they were saying about Biden was out of truth.
Wait, they spent time saying that Biden was this large international crime family. There's no proof of that. We heard the thing about Burisma.
That is yet to be determined, isn't it? That's still bubbling.
No, it's already been determined. We heard the thing about Burisma, and that has been totally debunked. I mean, how time works debunks the thing about Ukraine and Burisma and Biden taking money from them. We heard that Barack Obama, 1, wasn't born in this country, 2, wasn't a citizen, 3, was a secret Manchurian candidate that was going to implement Sharia, 4, was a secret Islamist. All of that, they didn't just call into question his policies. They called into question his actual birth, his religion, and his right to even sit in the office. That is on the same level. That is on the same level it's happening with Trump. Be consistent, Ron. If you're going to throw rocks, be careful of the glass house you're sitting in, man.
Do you know that what a conspiracy is, right? You know what a conspiracy is.
Oh, so I've been dealing with it for years, my friend. Years.
Right. So when you have one question that leads to another question that leads to another question, like it did with Obama, you've got to go searching for it. No, so when you do, and if you end up finding the truth,
have questions.
So be it. Then you find the truth.
But they ignored it when they found the truth. The truth has been completely and totally ignored.
Did they?
Yes.
Did they? Because I know it stopped, but yet the Dems keep bringing it up. That's what's interesting.
Well, it stopped because
it's kind of like racism.
Well,
everybody brings up race.
It stopped, Ron. It stopped because Barack Obama was no longer in power. However, it still was an issue during the Biden administration because we had people that texted the show and then said live on the air that they believed that Barack Obama was pulling the strings behind Biden. It still happened, man. It's just because Barack Obama was out of power. It didn't make any sense now to attack his religion or attack his birth certificate because he was already out of the White House. That's why it stopped.
Let me ask you,
it's
Bill.
political. That's why. And hang on. That's why it stopped, man. Ask me. What's your question?
So let me ask you, as far as when you just brought that up, as far as Obama pulling the strings, do you think that Biden was pulling the strings?
No, I think his staff behind him was making the decisions. And
so tomato. So you and you
that's different.
Right?
No, Ron, that is not tomato. It's either Obama is involved.
Do you think Biden was involved at all?
Yes, I do believe that Biden was involved in some of the decisions.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I do. But I don't think that Obama was involved in the decision making in the Biden White House. I do believe there are staff members that are holdovers from the Obama administration that were involved in the decisions, but I see nothing that shows me Obama was pulling the strings. But I do know. I do know for certain
that Obama was involved in any of it?
No, I don't.
None.
No, I don't. I think the time in which Obama got involved.
That he's the only president out of all presidents that stayed in Washington.
So, What does that matter?
No, don't you find that curious?
No, not at all. No.
With all the rumors that float around, with why he's still stating there, it's like, you know what? I don't know.
Ron, let's look
it
at
kind
this.
of waddles. It has feathers. It likes to swim in the lake.
Let's talk about the duck. Let's talk about a duck. Ron, let's talk about a duck. Barack Obama sought the largest office in the world. He wanted to be the leader of the free world. That is something that takes an enormous amount of ego, and you want the spotlight on you, and you want to have the credit. It's called freaking Obamacare. You're telling me someone with that kind of ego is going to sit in the back seat of the bus and make all the decisions without getting any of the credit? Horse feathers. That's not a duck, man. That is not a duck
on a daily basis.
How did they get so wealthy?
Look at everybody in Congress. Look at everybody in Washington. Look at everybody in Washington getting hugely wealthy.
Not Trump.
No. Oh, Trump has gotten enormously wealthy. Trump has gotten enormously wealthy based on the White House. Come on. You've got at least dealing reality. Ron, you've got at least dealing reality, man. Thanks for the phone call. Trump has gotten phenomenally wealthy. He was worth more when he walked out of the office the first term than he was when he walked in. We could even go his family members, Jared Kushner and Ivanka, phenomenally more wealthy than when they walked in. Everybody. That's what we bitch about all the time as far as Congress. And we complain all the time about Washington, D.C. People go there and come out being fabulously wealthy because of what happens inside of that just disturbed system. Yes.
But Bill, the thing I want to challenge you on is the idea that Barack Obama just walked away from political engagement, speaking. That I will just tell you, as somebody who's worked in the city and been in politics for 20 years, they may not hold the office, but the idea they're not pushing, having conversations behind the scenes, all that stuff, that continues. It absolutely continues.
That's different.
Even if you're not the person in the office.
That's different than the man pulling the strings. And that's what we were told. And that was what Ron's premise was. That, yes, that Barack Obama had his hand up on the back of Joe Biden and making him talk his stuff. We had people, you've heard them, Jeff, on this show. You've seen the text messages.
Who do you think was pulling the strings in the Biden White House?
Oh, I believe it was.
I don't think it was Joe Biden.
No, I believe it was the staff behind him. And I believe that in some cases that he was lucky enough to put people that were competent enough behind him in order to help make good decisions. And the number one example I will give you is the debates over the debt ceiling. Okay, here's the deal. We can agree. I hope we can agree that in the negotiations to raise the debt ceiling, more times than not, the Republicans got owned. Biden got what he want 9 times out of 10. So either the GOP have to be absolute, complete, utter morons because they let Joe Biden take over and use them and just run all over them, or the staff behind Biden was really good at negotiations. And I know 2 of the people, not personally, I know who they are, that were involved in the negotiations in the debt ceiling. They are steel. They're good. They were better negotiators than the people the Republicans brought to the table. It wasn't the old man Biden that out-negotiated the Republicans. It was his back staff. He was lucky enough to have people behind him that were good at their jobs from that perspective. I know you can disagree. I hate what the Democrats did, but for them pushing forward the Democrat agenda, they were good at their jobs. He was lucky enough to be able to do that before things started falling apart in his brain.
I will give you that people should absolutely be frustrated with the fact that Republicans control the House and we are still funding Nancy Pelosi's budget. That is ridiculous. Okay. And to your point, Bill, that demonstrates Republican incompetence. I will give that to you. And then also to your point, I think it showcases that a moment in a terrible moment in American history when we did not have the president leading this country. We had unnamed bureaucrats, to your point, negotiating all this behind scenes. They were not chosen by the American people. It was the president that was chosen by the American people. That's a sad aspect of our history.
Can we make the same argument with Trump? That if he sends people in his stuff in to negotiate, we would sit there and say these are unelected people and not representing the American people.
I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same at all.
It's not the same because it's Trump.
With Donald Trump.
Because
he is
Trump
in control.
And
Biden and Blake played that audio, and we'll get to Blake here in a second, that there were executive orders being signed that Joe Biden was not aware of. That is shocking and a stain on American history. But let's get to news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Thanks, Jeff. And Billy, I agree with everything Ron said, by the way. 21 degrees clear in Denver, expecting a high of 33. Today, our top story, the U.S.-Mexico border is closed to people seeking asylum. Now the DJT has returned to the White House. Refugee admissions are also set to be suspended, leaving little recourse for people looking to come here. An app that helped illegals navigate their way through their invasion is no longer in service. The FDA says that more than a dozen cats have been killed or sickened by bird flu in raw food products. The feds are now investigating how the virus got into the pet food supply chain. Cases have popped up in Colorado, California, Oregon, and Washington State. The attorney appointed to represent the suspect in the series of stabbings in downtown Denver says that her client is suffering from mental illness. A court filing last week by public defender Ariana Burnett sought to limit media coverage of the Elijah Caudill case. She said pretrial publicity should be limited because Caudill suffers from obvious, severe, and debilitating mental illness. The stabbing attacks occurred, of course, on January 11th and the 12th, and it left 2 people dead and 2 others injured. Caudill is due in court on Friday. Wokety woke Bishop Marianne Edgar Buddy, the left's buddy, uses the pulpit Tuesday to push LGBTQPRSTWXYZ and single out President Trump.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
They have no reason to be scared. Give me a break.
There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
If there are transgender children, I pray that they get away from their parents.
Some
mutilating their bodies.
Who fear for their lives.
They should fear for their lives because their parents are allowing them to do that.
And the people who pick our crops.
Your crops. You eat them, don't you? All right, here she is in a gross CNN interview.
And your tone there, so serious and genuine.
Yeah, she's so genuine. Such a great tone.
See him, he's stone-faced, he then looks down, but he's listening to every word you say.
Unfortunately for him, he had to sit there for 15 minutes and listen to that.
As you made that personal plea to him, what were you looking at him in that moment? What kind of response were you perhaps hoping for in that moment?
I was looking at the president because I was speaking directly to him. I was also, frankly, as you do in every sermon, speaking to everyone who was listening.
Get out of here. The Southeast is breaking snowfall records. Much of the South is facing snow, ice, and brutally cold temperatures, with some places breaking snowfall records more than a century old. A blizzard warning for Louisiana Tuesday was the first for the state. California authorities scrambling to protect the recently burned areas of LA County from possible mudslides. Southern California is facing a 60 to 80% chance of rain Saturday. Harvard has settled 2 lawsuits filed by Jewish students who said that the college failed to protect them from anti-Semitism. The university on Tuesday confirmed the settlement, which was for an undisclosed amount. Ichiro Suzuki is now in the Baseball Hall of Fame along with CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner. Nuggets run past the Sixers 144-109 last night. And let's see, we talked about the Philly mayor misspelling the Eagles. We'll play that next hour. Instead of Eagles, Eagles, she spelled it an entirely different way. 22 in Centennial, 21 in North Glen, 23 in Denver. It is Wednesday. Jeff and Billy continue.
Try to chase a deer down or a rabbit or so. I mean, a rabbit, a deer. They're really fast. I mean, I'm hungry, so I'm going for the quick burger.
Let's go. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and cool. Temperatures upper 20s and low 30s in Denver today. A cool northwest breeze. Lows tonight upper single digits to low teens. Partly cloudy to cloudy. A high near 30 on Thursday. Teens Thursday night. Now temperatures Friday briefly warm up. Back to the lower to mid 40s. Colder Friday night. Light snow after midnight. Lows in the mid-teens. Light snow likely Saturday and cold. Highs only 20s. Near 10 with light snow Saturday night. Flurries and cold only 20s Sunday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I'm going to put a poll up on x.com/Jeff Hunt. Yesterday, Bishop Marion Edgar Boudet, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, lectured Donald Trump during the inaugural prayer service at the National Cathedral. Were her comments to Donald Trump appropriate? Yes or no? You can join me and vote there. I'd love to hear your comments. Let's go to the phone line. Spencer Elizabeth, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay. Hey, Bill, I got to fact check you real quick, bud.
Yeah, please.
The comment about Trump leaving office with more wealth than when he entered is false.
Okay,
Multiple
I'll take a look.
articles from AP, Reuters. His net worth dropped when he left office after his first term.
Okay, fair enough. I could be wrong about that one, but we can say that he has tried to make money off of that. And while he was there, he did direct government offices to frequent his establishments. So he did make that choice. I could be wrong about that, and so that's a fair point, man. Not a problem. I will go and check. But yeah, I can absolutely be wrong about that one. Fair enough. Thank you.
So I want to move on to the comments from Speaker Johnson about the executive order banning LG and allowing Russia to essentially fund its war machine. And Biden claiming that he didn't ban it, he just approved a study on it. Obviously, Biden was unaware of what he was signing, as that's what he claimed to the Speaker of the House. But if you believe the staffers behind him were pulling the strings, you don't think those staffers had some kind of overlord directing them on what to do? Because it wasn't Biden, and it definitely wasn't Harris.
No, I don't think there was some sort of overlord. I think it was the idea of probably, just like when anything else, groupthink, where the people that were the advisors that were in charge of those particular areas got together inside of a meeting and made those decisions. There are times in which someone that is the executive or the CEO may not be in a meeting in which a decision is made about the direction a company is going to make, about a product, about an advertising, and then they go to them later and ask them to approve it. The fact that at that time, Joe Biden wasn't necessarily cognizant all the time, that also shows Biden's weakness. But I don't believe that there was a Barack Obama or someone else behind the scenes going, now that Biden is sleeping, I'm going to enact all of my evil plans.
My problem with that theory is the leadership in the Democratic Party that's extremely powerful, more powerful than the staffers of the president, are fully aware of what the president is doing when it comes to things like that executive order and how it would affect their state, which is essentially why Speaker Johnson brought it up, that it was damaging his state. And he was aware of it because the people and the companies that it was damaging were like, why did this just happen? So I just don't believe that those staffers could operate independently without some kind of major Democratic political figure pulling the strings with them.
Got a question for you, Spencer. Do you think those staffers were diehard Democrats?
Yes.
Okay. Then why does it take the Democrat machine to come in and tell them what to do? Why would they not already be rowing in that direction? Especially they were put in those positions. They were put in those positions because they've already come to those conclusions. Why then do they then have to be directed?
Because the Democratic Party has a hierarchy, and they've had one since, I guess, '68. Just I don't believe would allow staffers to go rogue that way. I think everybody majored, Pelosi, Schumer, Obama, in the Democratic Party were aware of the cognitive decline of Biden, and they knew that this stuff was going on behind the scenes, and they absolutely had their fingers in it. And I believe that to deny that as the most likely probability is disingenuous.
Now, here's the thing. With Pelosi and Schumer, I can see that. I can see them getting involved in some of the policy decisions. I just don't see the work of Barack Obama. The other part is these people that will be making these decisions are high-level staffers. They're not 25-year-old interns. These are people that are heads of their department. These are people that have been part of the Washington bureaucracy in many cases for years. And again, good, bad, or indifferent on that one. I disagree the way that you are characterizing them as young skulls full of mush that obviously can't find their own shoes without a map. These are people that are intelligent, but you were saying they couldn't come to their conclusion and they wouldn't do it without any sort of direction. I disagree. And the idea being, if you have someone that is like, again, in an executive role in a C-suite, someone that is in one of the corner offices, you're not necessarily the CEO, but you absolutely run that department. You absolutely get to make those decisions and then feed them to the CEO. The CEO is not involved in every single minutia. Example, Elon Musk hasn't been in the offices of Tesla for months now. Still runs the company, evidently. I'm curious how much he's running the company, but that company's running. Those are people that he put in place that are making decisions to run the company outside of where he is. And that can happen as well inside of the Biden administration.
Right. I think there's a major difference between a CEO placing power in people's hands to make those decisions and President Biden not being aware of what was going on behind the scenes. And
I think the two can be equated.
That.
I think the two can be equated. Because Joe Biden necessarily wasn't always in every meeting that was happening. And those departments were allowed to make those decisions, and they did. And in all honesty, here's the thing that is part of the dark side of me, Spencer, is if you had a CEO that sort of checked out and you didn't have as many constraints on what you wanted to do, you might go and stretch your wings a little bit. You might take your department in a direction you would try. And that's what I see. That's what I see with the oil and gas thing, man.
Schumer and Obama being very smart and seeing what was going on, I don't believe would have allowed the staffers to do that without some kind of direction and oversight behind the scenes.
Well, see, I can get with you on Pelosi and Schumer because they were already involved in the government. I can't get with you on Barack Obama. I think that
he is the biggest figure in the Democratic Party. What are you talking about?
But why do you feel that he is this mastermind that is sitting behind the scenes as some sort of ruling overlord?
He is a very smart man, smarter than Pelosi and Schumer.
Then how come the Biden administration made such major mistakes if he was so smart?
I guess I don't know how to respond to that.
That's the thing, man. You said he was so smart. No, you said he was so smart, but this idea of suspending the oil and gas was a dumb decision.
I'm not claiming that
Biden
Obama
didn't know that.
was in full control of every decision that was made. Or Pelosi. No. I'm not making that claim.
Yes, you did.
I am making the claim that he was meddling and pulling strings behind the scenes.
Come on. Oh, so he's
what do you mean, come on?
Either he has to be in charge or he's not, man. Because the example the example I gave you was he's either involved or the people in the departments were. And now you're hedging. Now you're like, well, he's only involved in some of the stuff.
Is there clear-cut examples of Biden making decisions? Are there? Yes. Are there clear-cut examples of Biden being unaware of certain decisions?
Absolutely.
Yes. That alone tells you that
that
Biden was making some decisions on his own,
yeah,
but not all of them.
Yeah. But yeah, you still, I can get with you on the idea of Pelosi and Schumer having influence. I can't get with you on the idea of Obama, in part because the people that were put in place.
Spencer,
but I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, great guys. Call, Spencer. Really
Dude,
appreciate it. Call
you
back
are the best.
again.
I sure appreciate
Love to have you.
Yeah, I sure appreciate when Spencer calls.
All right, we've got
good.
the Douglas County contingent in the Heritage Foundation. They're coming up here and going to be joining us in just a second. This includes George Teal, Abe Leydon, and Kevin Van Winkle. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. That's Carrie Underwood right there that we're listening to. I loved her performance. Carrie took the wheel, so to speak, during that inauguration performance. Well, joining us live, because we're doing a live broadcast here at the Heritage Foundation, is the Douglas County Contingency. Do you guys have like a name yet? Like you're the posse, the Douglas County posse.
Team Freedom is what I think. Yeah, that's probably the most appropriate, Jeff.
That's awesome. Abe Leydon sitting right next to me. And then we're going to get to Kevin Van Winkle, Darren Weekly, George Teal, all here in the conference room that we're broadcasting from at the Heritage Foundation. Why are you guys out here? Let's start there. What brought you out?
Yeah, really simply, we're part of the golden age of the Trump era, and we're super excited, Jeff. First and foremost, thank you for having us on. You're a friend and colleague. We always appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation with you. But Colorado has become an interesting place nationally, where we know that as the last conservative county in the Denver metro area, we need to hold the line when it comes to public safety and illegal immigration. We're doing that. We're doing that well. But the big challenge and stark statistic that our citizens need to be aware of is that the state spent $437 million on illegal immigration last year. They're $1 billion in the hole with a B. And they want to use things like kids with developmental disabilities and other programs, cutting those programs to pay for illegal immigration. That's simply not okay with us. Yeah. And again, we often say, listen, we support the legal process. It's the illegal, undocumented process that we have a concern with.
And look, Mike Johnston's decisions are going to affect you because, believe it or not, the people that don't follow border guidelines don't just stay in Denver. They're going to come over to Douglas County because it's such a great county. You guys have led it so well. The homelessness is down, drug use is down because of your actions there. So, of course, people are going to want to leave there. So it's going to affect your county, what Mike Johnston's choosing to do. Now, you all have said you're going to work with federal immigration officials, but isn't that state law right now?
Well, it's supportive of federal immigration law and the U.S. Constitution, and all of us that took the oath of office swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States. It's about time that everybody does that. So we're going to continue to fight. Now, listen, right now we are suing the state and the governor around the opportunity to enforce federal immigration law because it's that important. It's important to this administration, deeply important to us. But I'll just say I am so deeply blessed and honored to be working with the best sheriff in the state of Colorado, and I don't flatter. That's a true statement.
I agree with you.
He's doing a great job. And then my board of county commissioners. I mean, George Teal and Kevin Van Winkle, who is a former senator, are just tremendous. So all of us are in lockstep. I'm going to have to harass George Brockler, who I know is on here yesterday, but he's also on the dream team. Yeah. So he's a lot of fun, and we're glad to be out here representing Douglas County in the state of Colorado.
So let's game this out. Donald Trump says we're going to implement federal law. ICE officials are coming into Colorado. Mayor Mike Johnston has walked back his original statements, right? So he was going to have a Tiananmen Square moment. He was going to put his police out there on the county line. They were going to protect the illegal immigrants. And just 2 days ago, now going, well, we're going to walk that back a little bit. I'm going to cooperate with federal law. But you got DPS now saying that they're going to go into lockdown, not to protect their schools from violence, but from federal law enforcement agencies. So they are not going to allow ICE agents on the school ground. They will prevent them from coming in. So Colorado is it's going to be a boiling point, I think, right? You're going to work with ICE. I think Douglas County is going to get safer as a result of it, but there could be challenges and problems down in the city of Denver with ICE agents. What is Colorado going to look like 6 months from now, you think?
Well, I hope Colorado looks more like Douglas County. And that's what we've heard from citizens, elected officials aside. I'm a fifth-generation Coloradan. I'm actually the first Latino commissioner elected in the history of Douglas County. So I recognize the plight of those of families that are trying to stay together. But at the end of the day, Our job is to support the legal process, support the Constitution. And what you said is right. We're healthy, wealthy, and wise. The healthiest county in the state, the most prosperous, per capita. We've got the #1 school district in the Denver metro area. And frankly, we want to keep that going. So Douglas County is a place where quality of life comes first. That's not going to change in 6 months. And I think the rest of Colorado is really hoping to have that same attribute. I'll share with you, the only large county in the state that saw net migration in was Douglas County. So, I mean,
Really?
yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So the other counties, unfortunately, saw migration out. We saw people coming to Douglas County.
That raises concerns a little bit because I feel like Douglas County's shifting. I'm going to get Darren Winkle up here next.
Yeah.
Because when Romney ran in 2012, he won by almost 20 points. Heidi Ganahl won by less than 1 percentage point. That's a 20-point shift in 1 decade, 10 years. Is Douglas County getting more blue? Is it going to eventually look like Jefferson County, Arapahoe County?
Not as long as we're around. and again, the people that are coming to Douglas County, we just landed a $20 billion aerospace company called Safran. They're in our community because it's healthy, wealthy, and wise. So I think that the people are coming. They like what we're serving up.
I pointed this out, that conservatives build these great communities, these great states, all these natural resources. It's wonderful people to live there, and then all the progressives come, and then they get control, and then they ruin it. I'm afraid it's what's going to happen to Texas. But stay strong in Douglas County. Thank you for your leadership there. I'm going to pull up Darren Winkle here, the sheriff of Douglas County. He's out here with the contingency. All right, Mr. Sheriff. Did you have fun out here? I saw you and your bride. We're going to some of the balls.
Yeah, it's been a great time. It's just been an amazing experience, and I'm blessed to be here to witness history.
What brought you out here, and why are you working with these guys? You're getting you're getting Denver that says they're going to push back on this immigration stuff.
We'll see what the city and county of Denver actually does. In Douglas County, we enforce the law. We do hold the line, like the commissioner said. Yeah. And I don't care where you come from. If you're a migrant from Venezuela or you're a citizen of this country, it doesn't matter. We're going to hold the line, and we're going to enforce the law and hold people accountable for breaking the law. That's what makes Douglas County different.
But are you allowed to help me understand some of the legal conflict here? Because the state has said that law enforcement cannot work with ICE, I thought, right?
Well, there is a law on the books, 1911-24, I believe it is. If you read the letter of the law, and I've read it 20 times, it doesn't say that law enforcement can't communicate with ICE. Now, probation, yes, it does say that. It doesn't say law enforcement in general. And so what people need to do is they actually need to read the law carefully. Okay. And we do cooperate with ICE. What we can't do is we can't hold people on those immigration detainers that are signed by ICE agents. They're no good.
Do you just turn them over to ICE then, or do you have to let them go? What happens if you?
We'll notify ICE when we do the clearance as part of the booking process. ICE is alerted that we have somebody in our custody that they have a detainer on, and so if they want them, they have to come and get them. Period. What I have noticed is, and I talked to my staff about this, about November-ish, they actually started coming to get them.
Oh, really?
And so we're seeing that much more.
So prior to this, the Biden administration was just kind of like, let them go.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Since November, they've actually started to come and get them.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're getting this question a lot. Are you going to round up illegal immigrants? Is that going to be part of the Douglas County Sheriff's role?
That's not my role right now. We are arrested. If we arrest somebody, a migrant who has committed a crime, they will be arrested and taken to jail. And then, through that clearance process that I mentioned, we would turn them over to ICE in that matter. But in terms of just going and rounding up people who are in this country illegally, I don't have any federal law enforcement authority. Yeah. That could change. I don't know. We'll see what the president does. But there's a lot of things still to be determined on next course of action.
But as of right now, Douglas County is not going to Rock Canyon High School to round up illegal immigrant kids.
Absolutely not. Right? And I'll be honest with you, I think that's rhetoric. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see federal agents in tactical gear, doing explosive breaches on school doors to get kids out. It's absurd. And so I think a lot of this is just hysteria that has been brought up to bring more attention, negative attention to this issue. That is not going to be, I can't imagine that's going to be a top priority for ICE. They're going to go after the criminals first, and the people that are on their radar. They're not looking at going after kids in school. So I just think it's absurd to.
What are you hearing from other sheriffs in Colorado? Are they welcoming this change of administration?
We haven't specifically talked about it. I mean, obviously, we have sheriffs of different party affiliations, different opinions on this issue. So we haven't specifically discussed, any type of resolution or anything like that through the county sheriffs of Colorado, because we all serve very different communities. I don't just serve Republicans in Douglas County. I serve all citizens in Douglas County. So, I've taken a little bit of heat for different things, but the fact is I'm a great sheriff. I'm enforcing the law. I enforce it fairly, and I don't play favorites. And Douglas County is an amazing place, and I do think the demographics of Douglas County are changing because it's a great place to come and live.
Right, and people need to recognize there's a reason why. Well, it seems like to me, Sheriff Darren Winkle, sheriff of Douglas County, that what folks wanted, particularly law enforcement, was safe communities. So if you have an illegal immigrant that's doing bad things, first of all, they shouldn't be here legally. Secondly, they're committing crimes. You just wanted the power to be able to notify immigration that we have this problem and he needs or she needs to go.
Right.
That's all, right? So
pure and simple.
Wow. All right. We're going to continue. We've got the Douglas County contingent visiting us here at the Heritage Foundation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're doing a very special broadcast live from the Heritage Foundation and the Douglas County Posse. You guys remind me of Tombstone. You know, you guys are like walking around. There's new sheriffs in town. We actually have a sheriff here. Yeah, who would be Wyatt Earp in this group here? I don't know. Maybe Abe would be the Wyatt Earp out of them. Or no, he would be Wyatt Earp. He's the one that would do the Huckleberry. Who's the one that Val Kilmer played?
Yeah, Abe would be Huckleberry.
Yeah. Doc Holliday. That's it. Doc Holliday. Abe played Doc Holliday. Well, you're Wyatt Earp. All right. Now joining me is Kevin Van Winkle. Kevin, you've changed roles.
That's
You're not
right.
down at the state capitol. Are you happier?
I am. I feel like I came home. I spent too much time at the Capitol away from my kids and family for those first couple months of the year.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous job. It's very important. It's one of the most fulfilling and one of the most difficult jobs I've ever done in my life or ever will do. But I'm very happy to be back home here in Douglas County full time.
What are you hearing from constituents? What are the big issues right now, especially as it relates to Trump, executive orders, direction of the county?
Well, it was a whole new day for the United States of America. We're out here and advocating for our citizens, making sure that this new government, this new administration has our citizens in Douglas County at the top of their mind, that whenever they pass any bills, whether it be the U.S. Senate, Congress, from an executive order from the White House, that they're thinking about the people of Douglas County when they do that.
Do you think, though, that Trump's presidency is going to give Colorado the attention it deserves? I mean, we're a deep blue state. We're up there with Oregon, Washington, California in our politics. Do you think for instance, do you think he'll keep Space Force in Colorado? Is this something that he's going to commit to the people of Colorado?
I sure hope that Space Force does stay in Colorado. It's one of the reasons we're actually here, one of the many reasons why we're here. But it's also to remind Washington and all of the leaders here that even though we're in the shadow of deep blue Denver, that we're Douglas County, we're different, and we're on board to help President Trump when necessary.
Let's talk about the shift of Douglas County. Bob Marshall, for instance, has won now twice. Is that your old house? That's actually yours.
Yeah, kept it for 8 years.
Why is he appealing to Douglas County voters in order to keep that seat? He's a Democrat lawmaker that represents Highlands Ranch.
He is, and it hurts me a little bit in my heart. But he is an incredibly hard worker, and he gets out there in the campaign trail. And he's been advocating in Douglas County for a long time before running for office. So he's kind of a unique circumstance. And Highlands Ranch is one that will go back and forth. Now, Douglas County, it has become closer for some races. I know for Congressman Boebert, it was actually quite close. For George Teal, Commissioner Teal, and myself, I think we won by 20,000 votes or so. So Douglas County is just becoming much more unique. But when it comes to the end of the day, people want a safer community to live in. They want more affordable community to live in. They want to be free from overtaxation, overregulation. And when I run on that platform, the people vote for me, and then I follow through and do exactly what I said on the campaign trail.
Now, Governor Polis was out here for all these activities. Did you run into him?
I did not. I was unaware that he was here.
Oh yeah, he he didn't visit with you guys, huh? He just came in. He's as the chair of the National Governors Association. He felt compelled to come and be a part of all these activities. Well, Kevin Van Winkle is here. We're going to talk to George Teal next. The Douglas County Tombstone Commission is out here. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, January 22nd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history, and Donald J. Trump is your president. We're kicking it off. We have a whole hour planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're doing a special live broadcast. Wrap it up today from the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., as we cover all things Donald J. Trump's inauguration. Welcome to the golden era of America. And joining us live here at the Heritage Foundation is the Douglas County Tombstone contingent. We got county commissioners. We got the sheriff. They're all hanging out talking about how Douglas County's political leadership is going to partner with this new administration to make sure, as Abe Leydon so eloquently said, that Douglas County is free, safe, and wealthy. Remind me what it was? Healthy, wealthy, and wise. Thank you, Commissioner Leydon. So let's go to George Teal. George, now the complaint is that by partnering with the federal government, Donald Trump's administration, and ICE, is that all these mass deportations are going to result in people that do the hard work that Americans don't want to do leaving, and Douglas County is going to suffer as a result of it. So tell me how this is good for Douglas County to be partnering with ICE administration.
Yeah, personally, I think that's the greatest red herring in all of American policy, is this idea that, oh, no, we need these for all essential purposes, slave labor force, right, to be a part of our communities, where they're effectively second-class citizens hovering under the horizon of legality. Okay, well, no, that's not really the way it's always worked in America. The reality is, when we have had these large immigration waves that have happened many times, it started with the Irish right after the Revolution. It went to the Germans going into and during the Civil War era. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the Ellis Island generations coming in from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. And, okay, when it's legal immigration, those are the generations that do make the big splashes. Mm-hmm. But when it's been this illegal immigration that, quite frankly, has always defined the relationship with the state of Mexico anyhow, for our whole history, well, then that always exists as that second-class citizenry that never does get fully integrated. And that's why it was so important for Abe to point out how he's the first Latino commissioner in the history of Douglas County, because, you know, the Latinos have been that perpetual second-class citizenry throughout our entire history. Mm-hmm. And okay, maybe some people think that's right. Personally, I think that's kind of one of the original sins of America in a way, is we were never able to integrate those folks. Well, now the question still is, they are still Hispanic, only now they're from further south into South America. And the idea that, oh no, we need to find a place for them without really making a place for them, because they're still not legal immigrants. Yeah, I think that's a red herring. It's the height of hypocrisy. So, how if Douglas County cooperates, and we have full intention to do so? We heard from the sheriff; he has a strategy on how he can partner up with the federal government. We have full intent, and we're out here in D.C. this week to express our intent to partner with our federal authorities, the administration, and members of Congress. What effect will that have on Douglas County? I don't think it's going to have a great effect. I think Douglas County is going to remain Douglas County. It's always perplexed me how we still able to operate the McDonald's in the outlet mall area of Castle Rock for all these years, when, you know, the standard of living in Douglas County has continued to increase. Yeah. And yet you can still go to the McDonald's at the outlet malls and still get your Big Mac if you want to. So I don't see it as changing a great deal. I'm encouraged because I think it's going to be a great way that, listen, for 50 years, the people of Venezuela were the most educated people in the Western Hemisphere, second only to the United States of America. It was a prosperous nation.
Yeah, it was.
Until
I still remember that too.
Yeah, until the kleptocracy of Chavez got in there.
Nationalized oil and gas.
100%. And now they're one of the poorest. And I think if we can build our laws and reimpose laws that were just washed away under the Biden administration to have legal immigration, because remember, the gates were just opened up and everybody was welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Without fully being welcome, of course.
Well, and they didn't assimilate. They didn't go through the process. One of the most beautiful things in the world is go to an American citizen process, swearing in, where they've gone through they love this country. They're so excited. They've made it. I got to ask you, though, Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress have said cities, counties, states that are sanctuary may possibly lose federal funding, grant funding that may go to them, block funding, those types of things. Do you think that should happen? Should counties lose funding if they're not going to partner with the federal government to enforce immigration law?
Yeah, absolutely. And quite frankly, we have had issues of our policies in Douglas County running counter these last 4 years with the Biden administration. And we've had to have real discussions, Abe, Laura Thomas, and I, about, well, what do we do with policy? Because if we try to stay the course, and by the way, this became big, a real talking point in the wake of COVID, where we wanted to get rid of the masks.
Yeah,
we wanted
right.
to get the kids back in school. We want to get everybody back to work. And we were kind of being actively threatened with losing federal benefits if we did not comply. Well, okay, if that was good enough to apply to Douglas County over these last 4 years, recovering from COVID, I say, why isn't it good enough to apply that to other counties throughout the United States who don't want to get on board with the Trump immigration plan?
Now, we're talking to George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner. George, you've got another series of meetings. You guys are sticking around. You're going to meet with Chip Roy. Tell us the point of how this benefits the people of Douglas County, why you're out here.
Well, more specifically, hey, the people of Douglas County, we pay our income taxes too. We pay our federal taxes as needed. We're good citizens too. So we want to let members of Congress, new members of the administration know we're here to be partners. We're Americans too. We matter too. I know we're a red county and a blue state. Well, don't worry about it. We're still willing to get on board with the new administration and take our opportunities to tell our story, where we can partner up with folks from other states and work in the same direction and make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction to support President Trump.
It is an amazing new day in America. I went to some of the balls, saw Kid Rock and the Village People. It is wild, but Douglas County well represented out here as Donald Trump kicks off his second administration. George Teal, Abe Leydon, Kevin Van Winkle, Darren Weekly, thank you guys so much for swinging by. Great to see you all. Bill, let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. And George and Billy, 21 degrees and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 33. Our top story, Colorado joining 21 other states in suing to stop DJT's executive order blocking birthright citizenship. Colorado AG Phil Weiser says what 47 is trying to do is unlawful.
In an executive order, President Trump says he's going to overturn this constitutional guarantee. He can't do that. And for a lot of Coloradans who are citizens because of this provision, this is a scary step.
The order would end automatic citizenship for U.S.-born children whose parents aren't citizens or lawful permanent residents. Weiser said the order violates the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and the idea that a president could override the Constitution with the stroke of a pen is an assault on the rule of law. The goal of the lawsuit is to invalidate the executive order and prevent its implementation. Illegals are no longer able to seek asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border after 47 returned to office. Refugee admissions are also set to be suspended, leaving little recourse for people looking to get into the United States. Snow, ice, and freezing temperatures are impacting much of the South. In New Orleans, where snow is rare, more than 8 inches fell, breaking a record set in 1895. 1895. At least 30 million people are under snowstorm warnings through this morning, from Texas into Georgia and Virginia. And on the Gulf of America, people building snowmen on the beach. All federal employees in diversity, equity, and inclusion positions are being ordered to be placed on leave by DJT. The news comes after Trump signed an executive directive ending federal DEI programs, with offices being ordered to shut down. His name is Ellie Mistel on Messy NBC.
Yeah, so that's obviously very bad. It's particularly evil to. I always think of prisoners, people who are incarcerated who have changed, who have transitioned. According to this, You're going to take trans women and put them in male prisons. What do we think is going to happen to them there?
Yeah,
that's not going to be a good day.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a thing that has real impact. There's also a real obvious equal protection challenge. And so again, Trump will do this. He will be sued. This is one of the ones that could be, if not completely stopped, delayed, but there will be people who suffer unconscionable pain.
Bird flu in raw food products has caused the deaths of over a dozen cats, according to the FDA. The feds are now investigating how the virus got into the pet food supply chain. Cases have popped up in Colorado, California, Oregon, and Washington State. Ichiro Suzuki will now be in the Baseball Hall of Fame along with CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner. The Nuggets run past the Sixers 144-109 last night. And speaking of Philly, Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker, she's all fired up about the Eagles taking on the Commanders this Sunday in the NFC Championship game. At a press conference, she becomes a cheerleader and she tries to spell Eagles and has her Dan Quayle moment.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds! Let me hear you all
One more
say
time.
E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
18 in Littleton, 19 in Westminster, 21 in Denver. Wednesday, Jeff and Billy continue.
Absolutely. Very punchable. There's some things that come out of my face that I'm absolutely punchable.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and cool. Temperatures upper 20s and low 30s in Denver today. A cool northwest breeze. Lows tonight upper single digits to low teens. Partly cloudy to cloudy. A high near 30 on Thursday. Teens Thursday night. Now temperatures Friday briefly warm up. Back to the lower to mid 40s. Colder Friday night. Light snow after midnight. Lows in the mid teens. Light snow likely Saturday and cold. Highs only 20s. Near 10 with light snow Saturday night. Flurries and cold only 20s Sunday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, I want to ask you what you thought of the county commissioner's plan. This is interesting. Douglas County essentially going, we're so committed to Trump's mass deportation plan. We're willing to fly to D.C. to be a part of all the inauguration activities, go have meetings. They did a bunch of media. They were on Fox yesterday, Channel 7. They came over here. They're sending a very, very clear message to the administration that they're on board with the plan, but also the people of Colorado, that Douglas County is going to go this direction with Trump. Meanwhile, Denver, the mayor, DPS, saying, no, we're going to lock down our schools. We don't want to partner with federal immigration at all. How do you, Bill, think this is all going to play out maybe 6 months from now?
This is going to be interesting. I like the fact that the representatives from Douglas County were there. I think that's very strong. I think it's a smart thing to do. I disagree with Denver Mayor Johnston. I think he is taking the wrong role. I disagree with him talking about locking down the schools, and no, we're not going to allow the federal government to do this. I think if I'm in that power position, even if I disagree with what the government is doing, I would acquiesce. But I would talk about how this is a danger and look at the impact we have in our communities. And I'll tell you what, and again, I'm not sure this is fair, but I'm going to put on my marketing hat and my political persuasion hat just for a sec, because if I am on the side of Mike Johnston, he is going to get a heck of a lot more mileage out of the visual of feds, if it be ICE or whoever, even local police going into the schools to pull out kids, than he will by locking down a school because of it. The visual and the impact that he wants to generate is much greater in that Elian Gonzalez type moment. And I'm worried about Homan, and I'm worried about the Trump administration talking about going in and pulling kids out of schools, because those kids didn't do anything wrong. They were brought here or sent here. It's not of their own volition. None of those kids necessarily ran away from home to go find the better life in America. So I view that as doing something that is somewhat untoward to the kid. You're caught. And so I think there are better ways to deal with it than coming into the school. And what do you think about the rest of the classroom with people? And these are going to be armed individuals. They're going to have to be, if they're law enforcement, ICE, whatever, coming into the classroom to take out one of your kids.
Now,
I
Bill,
just think the visual is very difficult, but I don't disagree with it. So, yeah.
Jeff Crank has just walked into the room. He's going to be
Excellent.
up next. The new congressman from Congressional District 5, that's the Colorado Springs area, will be joining the Jeff and Bill show. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, along with their wives, were attending an interfaith service of prayer when Marianne Edgar Booty of the Episcopal Diocese of Washington took a shot at Trump while making a so-called plea.
To have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
After the service, Trump made it perfectly clear that he was not impressed.
Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They can do much better.
Shortly after everything took place, a video started circulating on social media exposing Marianne Boudet for her previous anti-Trump views and calls to replace him.
It is a message of a call for justice, for swift justice for George Floyd, for someone I've given up speaking to President Trump. We need to replace President Trump. We need leadership that will lead us in the ways that this country deserves. Thank you. Thank you.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're doing a very live special broadcast from the Heritage Foundation. This is a great conservative think tank here in Washington, D.C. And my friends are all swinging by and hanging out and having fun. One of them, Representative Jeff Crank from Congressional District 5. This is Colorado Springs. He's taking over for Doug Lamborn. First of all, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a whirlwind the last couple of weeks, but what an amazing ride it's been, and just so honored to be here.
Yeah, so I'm talking about whirlwinds. You yesterday were at the National Cathedral, and boy, oh boy, look, there's a few times I can remember where a pastor, specifically like in a sermon, turns to somebody and is like, I want to talk to you about your sins. Mother Teresa did it during one of the prayer breakfasts. I think Ben Carson turned to Obama and basically said something. So it's not totally unheard of, but not all that common for a pastor to do that. And then to be so direct to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance with a very politically progressive message. You were in that room. What did you think?
I was appalled, as was, frankly, everybody else who was there. When she did it, you could see everybody kind of sort of turning their heads and kind of gasping. And it was totally uncalled for. It was disrespectful and it was rude. And, you know, the day after, and by the way, it's always the left sort of lecturing us about, you know, civility and not being divisive. Could you be more divisive than to get the new president of the United States? Don't even give him a honeymoon of 24 hours, really, to be sworn in. And she starts lecturing him. It was just uncalled for. And you and I were talking right before the break. To me, it's really a shame. That is, first of all, it was at the National Cathedral.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful facility that is. It's just incredible. But that's an event. That National Prayer Service has been an event, I think, since the 1930s. And I'll never go to it again. I will never go to it again. And why would President Trump go? Let's say he finishes out his 4-year term. J.D. Vance, let's say, gets elected. Do you think J.D. Vance is going to go to that service in 4 years? No way. She ruined that for America, is what she did last night.
Wow, strong words from Jeff Crank. So, Jeff, are we getting a little picture on your leadership in the in Congress here? Bold, strong, getting taken right at the radical left.
Well, I mean, I think we have to. We have to call that kind of stuff out because, you know, they've spent all these years being really, frankly, very divisive with their rhetoric, and they think it's okay to do that kind of thing. It just was rude. It was uncivil. I mean, there's just so many words you can use to describe how terrible it was. When I walked out, there was another member of the clergy who was there who said, thank you for coming. And I mean, people just were up in arms talking to him and telling him how inappropriate it was.
And I've often found it's from that side too, that go, well, you know, making politics and bringing politics into your church is the reason why people don't want to go to church anymore. And then they turn around and bring a Mack truck full of politics into the church. Yeah. So you're like, well, yeah, that's why nobody wants to go to your church anymore. And that's what Trump brought up. He even goes, it was a boring service. And she should apologize.
It was very boring. And, you know, again, he is the president of the United States. Yeah. Can you not respect him enough? I mean, not even 24 hours into his term, and she gets up there to lecture him. But you know what? She's really not a bishop. If you look at it, she technically is. She's a political activist. And if you look back at some of the statements she's made, you know, she's consistently been attacking anybody, anything conservative, anything pro-America. She is beyond woke. And it was just a disgrace.
She got angry when Donald Trump held up the Bible after the rioters burned part of the church down right outside the White House.
Right.
And we were there all around that right afterwards. And in fact, as part of a documentary I did, and what Trump was trying to do at that point was send a message that rioters are not going to be allowed to burn down churches.
Right.
He's going to stand with the faithful. She got so upset about that and politics and religion and all that stuff. And then she does the
yes. How dare someone like Donald Trump hold up a Bible? Because, you know, as we all know that Jesus taught us that religion is only for a few, right? Only for the bishop.
Talking to Jeff Crank. He's the newly elected congressman from Congressional District 5. So, Congressman, you've been in politics a while. I've been 20 years. I have never seen the conservative movement this optimistic, this hopeful about the future ever. I mean, give me your perspective on what the last few days in Washington, D.C. have been like.
I think that's right. And we can't fail. I mean, that's the bottom line is we're going to do a lot of what we're doing here through reconciliation. It's going to be a very heavy lift for the House, for the Senate, for the president, but we can't fail. I mean, we have to get it done. This is our opportunity. And I'm pretty heartened, quite frankly. If you look back to 2016 when Trump took office in his first term, they were not as ready as we are today. First of all, I think a lot of people didn't expect him to win, right? And certainly Paul Ryan, who was Speaker of the House, didn't expect him to win. And so I just think they were completely unprepared in 2016 when President Trump won. That's not the case here. Mike Johnson has been working hand in hand with the president and his team over the last many, many months to get prepared so that when Donald Trump won, they're ready to go. And they really are. I mean, all these policies, I talked to the speaker yesterday, just got done with the meeting that the speaker was in. And he was, I think, 3 hours over at the White House on yesterday talking with it. In fact, he was talking about how he walked into the Oval Office the very first time with J.D. Vance, the vice president, had never been in the Oval Office ever in his life.
Even with Joe Biden as Speaker of the House, he was never able to. Not Mike Johnson. J.D. Vance, our new vice president, has never been in the Oval Office until he walked in yesterday with the speaker into it. He was just kind of describing what a great moment that was. So I think they're more than ready. And I think we have every opportunity to get this thing done. Well, one of the big things that we hear from our callers, listeners, and Lauren Boebert addressed it on the show, is that we're still paying Nancy Pelosi's budget from a few years ago. There has not been a new budget put together.
Right.
We continue with this omnibus spending, continuous resolutions over and over again. Republicans have the power. Can we get this budget under control?
Yeah. Well, we have to do it. They're stupid like a fox. I'll tell you, the left is they're sly, because what they did is they used COVID to raise spending, right? Yeah. And then once they got it to that, they just never passed budgets, because then they just continue to do these continuing resolutions. Right. And we were never able to get spending to come back down to pre-COVID levels. That's the first thing we ought to do on domestic spending, is just bring it down to pre-COVID levels, back to where it was before COVID hit. And that would save a lot of money right there, billions of dollars if we were able to do that. And then we got to go beyond that and make reforms, and we've got to do a lot of work in the healthcare area. Again, they're not cuts; they're reforms that will make the system more efficient. So most of that's going to be done in reconciliation, and there's just so much to get after and do.
Why not some cuts? I was here Friday or Saturday in Heritage. They hosted the new Secretary of the Treasury. They hosted Art Laffer, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, and they pointed out that if you leave on the table military, or you leave off the table military, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, you're left with 16% of the federal budget to be able to cut.
Yeah.
So those guys, and I would say Thomas Massey as well in the House, want to see serious reforms to Social Security, serious reforms to military spending. And this is where you're going to see Republicans fight, because we have different views on all this stuff. So going into this budget process with some of those really important Medicare, Medicaid, military spending out there, do you think we'll see cuts to some of those programs?
Well, yes, I think we will have to. And this is going to be the big challenge. And we do need to cut. We need to cut spending, domestic spending, discretionary spending. The president has made it very clear, though, that he's not going to make changes to Social Security or Medicare. He's going to do it without it. That takes a lot off the table. Yeah. He's the president. With all due respect to Tom Massey nor Jeff Crank are president. So we don't get to decide. He runs one branch of government, Donald Trump does. So we have to deal with the reality that we have. We don't have a president who said we're going to look at Social Security and Medicare. Yeah. So we have to cut what is possible and real, and you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. We've got to get what we can get done. I'm all for cuts. I'm all for changing. I mean, I'm a big proponent on Social Security of making changes to where people can invest their own money in a private retirement account if they want to. I'm all for all of that stuff. I don't think we're going to get it through reconciliation because Donald Trump doesn't want it to happen. So it's fine. We can talk about those things. But at the end of the day, I would hope that everyone in the Republican conference, Tom Massey included, understands that. Like, we're either going to get something, but you got elected to a legislative body of 435 people. We got to get to 218 to get stuff done here. We can't all have our own way.
Talking with Jeff Crank, Congressman from Congressional District 5. So when we return, I'm going to ask you about, you're the representative of the people to the federal government. Now, Colorado, under Jared Polis, Mike Johnston, does not want to play with federal immigration officials. Denver Public Schools saying they're going to bar the school doors. How is the federal government going to relate to Colorado? I'm going to talk to Jeff Crank. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're doing a special live broadcast from the Heritage Foundation. Great, wonderful, powerful conservative think tank here in Washington, D.C., making a difference to advance faith, family, and freedom in this country. And joining us, swinging by to say hi amidst all the activities and getting his new office running, is Congressman Jeff Crank from Congressional District 5. That's the Colorado Springs area. So we got to talk history, and we got a caller here that wanted to know, what was it like in the rotunda during that moment? That was something that was really unique. It hadn't happened since Reagan 85. So give us a little of the sights and sounds.
Yeah, it was. I figured it was something that I'll never get to do again. Yeah. All right. I mean, it's who knew that it would even this kind of opportunity would happen this time. So it was great to be in there. I think there was maybe 600 people in that room. I was frankly in the back. You know, we went in as House members based on seniority. So all of us freshmen were sort of in the back. But as we came in, saw lots of folks. Speaker Gingrich was right in the front row. I got to shake his hand. John Boehner was there, and there was some of the previous speakers. Got in there. It's surreal, right? Mm-hmm. To be in a room like that and watch it and just sort of see what you can see off camera, right, that you're not seeing because you're not in the room, is always interesting. Just the interaction of people before it started and things like that.
And that Carrie Underwood moment. I mean,
that was incredible.
Kind of standing around.
That was incredible.
My favorite comment about that was Carrie Underwood took the wheel. You remember, she's the one that wrote the song.
That's right.
Jesus, take the wheel. And she just walks up, takes.
I hadn't heard that.
I mean, did it sound great? Was it?
It sounded powerful. Amazing. I thought it was more powerful. Yeah. I thought it was more powerful. I mean, she just obviously kept looking over at the Marine Corps band, and everybody was sort of waiting. I don't know, how long did that go? It seemed like it was 90 seconds or so. I mean, it was a long time. And then she just said, "Well, I'll just do it," you know. And I think it was more powerful that way than it would have been with the music, quite honestly. Yeah. She did a great job.
A great point. And so now you, Lauren Boebert, and Gabe Evans have sent a letter to Jared Polis. Yeah. Tell us what this letter is about.
We did. We sent a letter. You know, the governor in his State of the State address said that he welcomed federal staff to come in and help solve the immigration problem we have and do deportations. He said that in his State of the State address. But what's interesting about that is he spent the last several years signing bills into law, making Colorado a sanctuary state. And we reminded him of that he should repeal those sanctuary state laws, which are damaging Colorado. They're harming, our quality of life, making crime rise and those sorts of things. So we sent that to him. The three of us sent that to him, hoping that he would answer. Maybe the media would pick it up and ask him those questions, because it doesn't seem like many in the media are asking those questions of Governor Polis.
Well, I've asked lots of people this morning the same question. What is Colorado going to look like in 6 months? You have Denver, you have a mayor of Denver, you have the governor of Colorado with sanctuary city and state policies. Then you have the county commissioners of Douglas County going, now we're going to work with Trump on these mass deportations. What is going to happen in the midst of all this, you think?
Well, I think we have to see, and we were talking during the break about things like Denver Public Schools and others saying, well, we're just not going to cooperate. Well, you know what? Then you're not entitled to federal funds. And we need to figure out a way here, and I'm certainly willing to do that. If you're not going to work with the federal government to do the things that the federal government needs to do, it's not a handout. You're not entitled to those funds. We should just take those away from entities and organizations, governmental entities and organizations that don't want to help enforce immigration law. It's simple. We are either a nation of laws and the rule of law matters, or we aren't.
Well, and then you end up with the city of Denver that can't pay its hospital because it spent $100 million on illegal immigrants. It has to raise taxes. So you may see, I'm not sure everybody's going to go home.
Right.
I think they're going to try to run to these sanctuary states. And that's going to put a tremendous social burden on these institutions, like hospitals, schools. I'm not sure. Do you get a sense that? Do you get a sense that Jared Polis is eventually going to play with Donald Trump and
I don't
get in
know.
line?
I don't know. I think we have to see what's going to happen. I think if you look at some of his recent statements, it does appear that maybe he's gotten the message, right? He said it in his State of the State address that he's wants to cooperate and all those things. That's well and good, but let's see when it comes down to cooperating. You're exactly right. That's exactly what's going to happen. States like Colorado that have these liberal politicians who are out, beating their chest and trying to virtue signal on this immigration issue, they're going to bear the brunt of this unless we as citizens stand up. And so this is a moment for Coloradans to push back on the government. And we're going to do what we can at the federal level to try and push back on the state. I'm all for taking away federal funds from organization and entities in Colorado or other states that don't want to help us enforce immigration law.
Final question. I know you got to run. Quick update on Space Force. Is it staying in Colorado? Have you heard anything from President Trump on it?
Well, no news is good news, and that's a good thing. We were certainly concerned that there might be an executive order early on, maybe even day one. That didn't happen. That's a good thing. It would be, I think, unfortunate if that happened. That's going to put a lot of pressure if there was an executive order to move it. That's going to put some pressure on guys like Gabe Evans, particularly. Are you voting with the president? Or are you voting with Colorado? I could see the Denver Post articles already on that. So we hope that doesn't happen because Gabe Evans and Jeff Crank and Jeff Hurd, we've got to cast some tough votes here to save America. Let's get that done. We're working as a bipartisan group. We've met with our 2 U.S. senators. We've met as a delegation. We're working hard to keep Space Command where it should be in Colorado. It doesn't make any sense. Many billions of dollars. I've heard anywhere from $2 to $5 or $6 billion to move Space Command anywhere else. That we don't have that kind of money. We're running a $35 trillion national debt.
Yeah, I'm talking to Jeff Crank. Now, Jeff, people want to follow you. They want to learn more about what you're doing, especially in Congressional District 5 and how you're going to lead. Do you know the website of your new house?
It's crank.house.gov is the website. And you can follow us on X at Rep Jeff Crank.
At Rep Jeff Crank. Follow him all there. Congratulations on your victory. Thanks for taking time to swing by and be on the Jeff.
As always, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate the time.
So, Bill, I'm going to throw it back to you now. Do you think that we're going to see more illegal immigrants come into Colorado as a result of Colorado's sanctuary state policies?
Interesting question. I think that it could happen, but I also think it will be mostly dependent on how Trump and Homan enact this mass deportation. Because, and I go back to a conversation we had prior to the election and then just after the election, that so far what I see is in the Latino community and in the illegal immigrant community that they feel the original transgression of crossing the border isn't viewed as a crime. That's their perception. I understand it is not the perception of MAGA or of the Trump administration. So I believe there are many of them that feel that original sin isn't going to be held against them. So until you start seeing people that their only crime is crossing the border illegally being picked up, I don't think you will see people coming here. However, I do feel there is going to be a contingent of people that have done some bad stuff, and they will come here to hide, hoping to blend in with everybody else. Because if you do commit a crime, the easiest thing to do is then get lost into a larger crowd. And then it's harder to discern who you are. So I do think that's going to be a problem. And that is a negative, absolutely, for Denver and for Colorado, because it has the perception of being a sanctuary city for those that aren't necessarily a harm to society, but also those that are a harm to society. So I think you can end up drawing some of the bad people. I also think that there are going to be some people that are going to start leaving certain areas and are going to move to different cities and states that may not necessarily be sanctuary cities, but just going. Like, I believe the people in Springfield, Ohio, that were, of course, maligned by saying they're eating the dogs and the cats, which they weren't. I believe some of them are going to be moving out of that community simply because of how they have been painted inside that community. And we'll have to see. I'm also super curious about those, temporary citizen papers that the Haitians in Springfield were given. Is Donald Trump going to roll back that as well? Because these are people that had to be vetted beforehand. You couldn't just show up at the airport and then get on the plane. They were flown here, but you had to be vetted. They had to see who you were. They had to make sure you didn't have a criminal past. So these would be some of those people that I would think Donald Trump would want to bring into America because they have a desire to be a citizen, and they're not the bad people we're talking about. They're not out there committing the crimes, because those papers, those rights would be rescinded immediately if they did. But what's your thought? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, look, DPS has 4,700 illegal immigrant students in its program, right? Do I see Donald Trump launching immigration raids while kids are at school? No, I don't see it yet. So I think that DPS's reaction to this and saying we're going to harden the schools, we're going to lock them down, we're going to all that, I think it's a tempest in a teapot. I think they're overblowing.
I agree. Yep, I agree.
But I do think, though, that if you're a parent and you're here illegally and you're watching all this happen, you're making plans. Like you get, and like the illegal immigration block of people, they're not all homogenous by any means.
Yeah.
You have criminals who, commit violent crimes. They're terrible. You also have reasonable parents and families that are going, well, this is no longer the right place for us. We need to figure out where to go. That could be another state. And then if that happens, where you end up, as I was just mentioning to Jeff, a large number of illegal immigrants coming to Colorado, coming to California, the strain that's going to take place on our social services is going to push the people of these communities probably against the sanctuary policies. If you can't go to your local Y anymore because there's so many people there, you or homeless shelters can't take in homeless veterans, for instance, because they have too many illegal immigrants, or Denver Health has to spend millions of dollars and is running into debt trying to service an illegal immigration population. I think you're going to see people get more sympathetic towards Donald Trump and more against sanctuary policies simply because the math doesn't work at the end of the day.
I got a question for you. I got a question for you,
Matt.
I can see, some of those examples, but what I'm wondering is if these are people that have been here in America and haven't committed crimes, etc., and let's say they've laid down roots for a decade, 15, even 2 decades, those people probably have a support system, but more importantly, would probably have access to at least a little bit of money that if they came here, I don't think they're going to be the people housed in the Y. I don't think they're going to be the people that just came across the border. If they're moving here, they're going to be looking for opportunities for employment. They're going to be networking here, even if it's under the table. They're going to know how to navigate that side of the economy. So I'm not certain that those illegal immigrants, and I'm talking families and such that they're discussing, not criminals or things like that. Those families coming here, I don't think they're going to end up in the shelters, which I think is going to make them harder to find. The other thing that I think will happen is this is a boon for all of the illegal paperwork. That if you're out of the country, if you're an expat and you can sell your social security number to someone, you've just made a ton of cash because that person wants that social security number to be able to stay here in America. So I think that's the other thing that we're going to see happen. But just a thought.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. Does that happen? People sell their social security numbers?
In fact, and the weird part is, that's I know 3 people in my life that have purchased illegal social security numbers. They're here illegally. 2 of them are DACA recipients now, but they had illegal, artificially purchased social security numbers. And that's how they made it here. And they said, it happens all the time. A friend of ours, you would know him too, I'm not going to mention him on the air, but a friend of ours talked about his time working at a lumber yard. And what would happen is there was a couple of guys there, they were here illegally. And they were here and they were Stephen Jones, whoever it was. Well, then the immigration caught up to them. They were deported or sometimes had to leave the state or the city for a while. They would return.
And they showed back up
and
with
now,
a different
and now
name.
they're Jeff Johnson. Yeah. And the different name, different social security number. And the thing is, the lumberyard didn't care because it still was a pair of hands that was working, that they could pay less than they could for an average American. So they didn't care. They knew for certain. And this guy that you and I both know knew for certain they were in the country illegally, knew for certain that is a bogus name, a bogus ID card. But it didn't matter because he knows that person's going to work. Doesn't matter if it's Stephen, John, Jeff, Bill, doesn't matter the name. The person's going to show up and do a hard day's work. So that was irrelevant to him. So, yeah. And I'll tell you who that is off the air in a second.
Some folks on social media are reporting that government officials in Colorado may even tip off illegal immigrants of pending raids.
Oh, I don't like that. I got kind of an issue with that one.
Yeah.
Because it's...
Why is that?
I don't like local officials counteracting and trying to countermand what's going on as far as federal law enforcement. I think that is, in some ways, telling the illegal immigrant community that we are necessarily on your side, that we're going to help you break the law. And the problem is that where's the line at that point? And I know that I am being somewhat arguing against myself, and I understand that they broke the law to get here. But if the government is going to actively help you circumvent and avoid federal law enforcement, I have a question about the function of that government in the first place, regardless if you're here legally or illegally.
Phone lines are open. Join the conversation. 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, January 22nd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in. You've chosen to tune in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump is your president. We're off and running. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, the people of Denver, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Billy and I are going to get into some more of these executive orders. Latest update coming from Donald Trump. Justice Department orders investigations of any official who refuses to enforce Trump's immigration policies. We're going to get into the immigration. We're going to get into the diversity. We're going to get into these new executive orders and what they mean for you. So you're going to want to join the conversation.
Do we get to talk about the fact that we're all women now? Woo! Yeah.
We're all women.
Yeah, we're all women. We'll talk about that after.
I thought we were two genders. Two.
No, not according to the executive order. We're now all women. Woo! I know. This is going to be fun.
I saw women since conception, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
See, we're all women. Yes. Science is fun. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
Oh, boy. Somebody call and help me.
Just wait. This is
Bill and I are going to end up back with space right now.
I know we are.
All right. Let's check in first on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. 24 degrees, partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 33. Our top story on the Gulf of America in New Orleans, where snow is rare, more than 8 inches fell, breaking a record set in 1895. Snow all over the Southeast. You don't think God is real? Come on. It's the Gulf of America, the first year, and we see snow for the first time in 1895. They're building snowmen on the beach in Pensacola. The U.S.-Mexico border is closed to illegals seeking asylum now that President Trump has returned to office. It's no fun being a legal alien. Refugee admissions are also set to be suspended. This leaves little recourse for people looking to get in to the U.S. And this bozo shouldn't be behind the pulpit preaching.
precedent does this then set? Because, in times we talk about the idea of states' rights, and states should be allowed to make their own choices. Would this mean then necessarily that, could you come in and have some sort of a policy from a Democrat? And they would say, now I'm going to start putting state officials in jail that don't follow X, Y, or Z. Could it be something having to do with the gay or transgender community? Could it be something like if, coming out and reversing Donald Trump's order and saying now these pronouns have to be used, or this has to be done inside of the schools? What would it do as far as abortion law? I mean, I understand there would be challenges right away, but if there is some sort of an executive order or an edict coming out of a Democrat White House that makes a change in abortion policy in America, could they then start rounding up those governors, those city councilmen, those lawmakers, even in the states that helped pass those laws? This is a really, really weird precedent, because I think the unintended consequences can be very, very dangerous as far as what we say the White House has the ability to enact and how they have the ability to punish state officials. What do you think?
So, Bill, the old saying that comes from the good old word that you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So think about this. We all saw it. The full power and might of the federal government come down on the J6ers, right? They investigated every aspect of it. They prosecuted them. They took them into courts that were not friendly to the J6ers. We saw it. Okay. Now, that same federal government, Department of Justice, can use all of those resources now to target elected officials who are actively disobeying immigration orders.
Now, are they necessarily analogous? Is the behavior of January 6th the same as the? Yeah. Is it the same?
Oh, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. That's an interesting question, because could you make the argument that they're disobeying the orders of the federal government?
Yeah.
And now you have, think about it, you have the investigative power, you have the attorneys, you have the judges, you have the jails, you have that entire system now has turned on the very same people that were kind of applauding the J6 prosecutions.
Yeah,
and the heavy-handedness of it.
And see, the thing that I look at is
the sword, you die by the sword.
The thing I look at is I don't think, I'm not sure it's fair to always taint the judicial arm of our government the way that many do, and in some ways the way that you just did, saying that, oh, well, these are judges that we're certain are going to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, we have seen judge shopping. We can see that based on some cases that are filed by state attorney generals, that they pick something that's a good court. We can look at something like mifepristone, the abortion drug. That court was chosen because of how that judge feels. So I can agree that happens, but I'm less convinced it happens in criminal choices as far as where you're going to charge. There's some idea behind where you're going to charge as far as what you think you can get. But look at Jack Smith. He charged in Florida and got Eileen Cannon. If he was really, really certain of nailing Trump's pelt to the wall, I think he makes a different choice and maybe only sticks with the feds, because the judge in D.C. was a little bit more lenient and willing to listen to his case. So I'm not certain about that one. And I think the J6ers are somewhat different, because that was, in some ways, an act of preventing the government from carrying out its function of the transfer of power based on an election, and they're breaking into the Capitol. And to me, that's different. And I understand the criticism based on the treatment of the Black Lives Matter protesters. But even then, I still say breaking into the Capitol and what happened there is different than even all the chaos that was caused, even people shooting the state capitol here. I think it's a bit of a different reach. However, does this mean that the Republicans are, I don't know how to say this, is it less that the Republicans were super, super concerned about the Biden administration using the Department of Justice to crush their political enemies and all the lawfare? Or were they just more concerned that they weren't the ones doing it.
Yeah. Interesting. Join the conversation. Phone lines are open. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Campos Law text line at 720-819-5115. Bill, another big one coming down recently. Late last night, Trump ordered the officials overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is being reported by the New York Times. Efforts all across federal agencies be placed on leave and take steps to close their offices by Wednesday evening. In a memo from the Office of Personnel Management, that's OPM, the heads of the departments and agencies were ordered to purge such officials by placing all DEI staff on paid administrative leave, effective immediately 5 p.m. on Wednesday, that's today, and to make plans for staff reductions by the end of January 31st. The memo also directed agencies to take down any language or advertisements about their DEI initiatives and to withdraw any pending documents or directives that would undermine the new orders. It also ordered agency heads to inform DEI officials that their offices would be closed and that employees would be questioned about whether there were any remaining efforts that remained, quote, in disguise by using coded or imprecise language. Bill, your thoughts on the closing of these DEI offices and federal agencies?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, and I do want to remind the listeners right now that we have got internet connection problems here, so we can't necessarily see the text messages. So you're going to have to ring us on 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971 if you want to participate in this conversation, explain to me why I'm absolutely and completely wrong. I can understand why there's been a lot of pushback for DEI, and I do believe that there are a large, I don't say all of them, but we can find, I would say, a large number of cases in which it was misapplied and used incorrectly. But where I push back is many times from my conservative friends, when I hear them talking about DEI, what they're actually saying is that these people that were women or minorities were promoted above and instead of people that were more qualified. I say that did happen sometimes, but I don't believe that was the mass involvement or use of those rules. It normally seemed to be that when you had people, it's much like affirmative action. When you had people that were equal on qualification, you should consider having the minority or understanding what the woman brings into that group and into that organization. And it's some of that is because of institutional bias. We've known for years that you hire someone that looks like you, that acts like you. That's why when someone comes in and goes, oh my God, you went to the same college? Yes. We used to hang up the quad here. Yes. That you've got an in. We've seen that inside our corporate world for years and years and years. So where I'm worried is that this is a conclusion that people that were unqualified were placed into those positions, where I think that happened sometimes, but I don't see that happening all the time. And I think it happens when you're talking about quotas. Now, it's Trump's administration. He is perfectly free to close as many of those offices as he wants to. But I'm going to remind people that when you looked at his inauguration, if you looked at the people that were in and around him, that was a collection of millionaires and billionaires to the large part. It wasn't an idea of average Americans. It wasn't a diversity across this. We are that part of the sales pitch of America is the melting pot. We are supposed to be multicultural and diverse. I'm not sure about when you were growing up, Jeff, but when I was in school, that was supposed to be one of our strengths. The fact that we drew from so many different cultures and the fact that we drew from so many different races and religions across the planet, that then we knit that together to be stronger, because it was our diversity that allowed America to succeed rather than it being an impediment to us succeeding, because we would point back to the other European nations and Asian nations and things and that were very homogenous. And we were like, look at what we are able to do. Look at what JFK and sending us to the moon. There's some, things like that. So that's part of it is, even it's trite and stupid. But even inside of the song New York, New York, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. It's that idea that you can come here and your skills and talents can bubble up. And somehow we've looked at the idea of having a diverse workforce now being a negative, now being a drain on the society. And that's not, when I was growing up, that was not the idea, the purpose, or the promise of America. You look at the plaque on the Statue of Liberty. Inside that plaque, it refers to the fact that we take the refuse of the rest of the world, the garbage. We're supposed to be taking the garbage, those that are cast off and ostracized by their countries, by their societies. And here you're going to find a welcoming place that will allow you to succeed on your merits. I agree that we haven't always followed through on the idea of letting people succeed on their merits, and there are all sorts of reasons for that. But I'm worried that this push against DEI at the core ends up being a reneging on the promise of what America was in the first place. What do you think?
Yeah, as you can imagine, I disagree because our diversity is not our strength. It's our unity that's our strength. So what ended up happening was, while we appreciated diversity, we made diversity the goal in itself as opposed to unity. So you remember our motto is E pluribus unum, out of many, one. So if you end up with just lots of different diverse little communities, but you don't have assimilation around the core American ideas, then you end up with real problems. And so it's got to be diversity towards unity of the American culture, of the American mindset, of the American beliefs and principles. So that's really important. But then also, what ended up happening was under Abraham Kennedy, and if you read his book called Stamped from the Beginning, you ended up with
you know what, Jeff, hang on a sec. Just hold it. Jeff, hold on for a second. Your phone is skipping just a little bit right now. And I really want to make sure that I don't jump on top of you. And I want to make sure, because I really like the direction you're going. I think it's going to make our listeners think. It's making me think. I think you've got an excellent point. But what I want to do is let's step aside. We're going to take this break right now and see if the cell phone signal clears up, because I want to make sure that you have all the time that you need in order to make your point. Fair? Cool.
Billy.
Excellent, man. All right, hang on. Okay, Jeff's on hold. You're listening to Jeff and Bill. Jeff's in Washington, D.C. I'm back here behind the board. We're having internet problems. If you want to participate in the conversation with Jeff and I, want to tell me how wrong I am about this, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Is the strength of America our diversity, or is it our unity? How do we get from diversity to unity? What would be your plan? And do you agree with Donald Trump closing down the DEI offices? This is a great day in America. Or are we taking a step backwards and going closer to segregation? What do you feel? 303-696-1971. You're listening to Jeff and Bill on News Talk 710 KNUS. This is Jeff and Bill. We are News Talk 710 KNUS, Denver's talk leader. Jeff is live in Washington, D.C. I'm back here in Denver, and our internet has gone. We're trying to reconnect, but right now we have Jeff joining us on the cell phone. We were just talking about the elimination of the DEI offices and positions inside the federal government based on an order given out by Donald Trump. He's the president. He's back in the White House. He deserves to have that power. Is it the right one? Jeff, we were talking about the idea of unity and diversity and bringing America together. Yeah, and I want to make sure you had enough time to finish your thought, man.
No, I appreciate it. If our connection's back, just let me know. I think we were on a good trajectory through the 90s, early 2000s. I was publicly educated. You were privately educated. But the idea back then was Martin Luther King's judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And then you had this movement that was really by Ibram Kendi.
Oh, Jeff, we're breaking up again. It's jumping. I'm looking like every third syllable, man. This sucks. This stinks.
I'll let you wrap the show then.
Yeah, I'll let you go, man. Go have fun. Give a big hug to Mrs. Jeff. Happy anniversary. Everyone who know it was Hunt's anniversary on Inauguration Day. Talk about an amazing day to have the anniversary. That is fantastic. And he's been running around with his lovely bride in their old haunts. You may not be familiar that Jeff he had met his future wife earlier on in college, but then they reconnected when they both were in D.C., and that's when the sparks flew. In fact, Jeff, you shared with us that for some of a belated anniversary dinner, you pulled out the big stopper. You went to P.F. Chang's. Why? Because when they were both working in Washington in their early 20s, they were, studying and doing a grad school at night. And because of that, they only had time to meet after like 10 o'clock. And P.F. Chang's was the easiest place they could meet at that time. So that was a wonderful anniversary dinner. Jeff, it has been wonderful today. Give your bride my best. Happy anniversary from everybody here at KNUS. And please, safe travels home. We will be happy to have you back here in the studio tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Enjoy your day.
Down.
Hey, take care, man. See ya. All right. This is Jeff and Bill, News Talk 710 KNUS, and now just Bill. You know what, though? I would love to be able to screen the phone calls, but I can't. So we're going to go directly to line number 1. Sorry, I can't talk to you beforehand, but welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. What's your first name, and what do you want to talk about? Hello?
Hello?
Are you there?
Hello?
Yeah.
Am I on?
Yes, you are. I know. I'm running without call screener today. We're like flying, on a skeleton crew.
Well,
what's up?
This is Gino. Geraci.
Hey, Gino, what's up? How are you, man? Now, Gino Geraci hosts Crosswalk over on KRKS, our wonderful Christian teach and talk station here right down the hall. So, yeah, what's on your mind, man?
Well, you threw out the gauntlet to Jeff about the pathway to unity. He was talking about each purpose unity. And I couldn't help but think about a shared morality. In other words, when we talk about being Italian or Mexican or whatever your diverse background is, I was wondering if really the road to unity is over core values. Are there such a thing as core values? Are there things that whether you're black or white, male or female, that you share, that we share in common as human beings? And so when we talk about some of those values, like dignity, respect, I'm thinking of some core moral values. You could go down the line.
Now, Gino, your phone is breaking up just a minute, so I'm going to bring you down for a second there, just to see if it reconnects a little bit better. I like the idea of the shared core values. Now, here's a question, because Gino knows a lot about the religion stuff, and he's really, really good at this. In fact, Calvary Chapel Aurora is where you will find his wonderful teachings. Really, really great guy. So, Gino, do you think we can have these shared common values without the influence of religion?
That's an interesting question, because as you have an underlying ideological view, some people might think of that as religious. I couldn't help but think back onto your conversation that you had with Jeff about the so-called bishop of the National Cathedral.
Yeah. Oh, and I apologize to you about that one. I'm sure it made you mad, but I apologize. But yeah, continue.
No. It actually didn't make me mad, because again, are some of our shared values compassion, empathy, service, security, responsibility, respect. Again, when you see it through the ideological lens of the particular bishop that we're talking about versus the current president of the United States who's sitting right in front of her, to your point earlier, because I think you shared something, Bill, that was really important, and that is what happens if you start from the premise that being here illegally is not really that big of a deal. In other words, is this a social? You talked about the original sin. If you deny the original sin and you answer the question, under what circumstances should we, can we throw down the rule of law or whatever in order to function or whatever? So, but back to that same thing. How are their core values? So, to your point, I think it is impossible to have a shared moral value. But what we have to do is we have to redefine religion if we're going to do that. So, in other words, if you're an atheist or an agnostic, do you hold a religious worldview? My answer would be yes. That even the atheist, remember, has a religious worldview. They believe by faith that there's no such thing as God.
Oh,
they believe
nicely done. You're right.
Faith,
Yep.
They believe by faith that there was either nothing or something inexplicable whereby the universe came into being. That we're the product of unguided processes, or we are the product of guided processes. But underneath all of that is an underlying, I'm going to call it an impulse.
Yeah.
And the underlying impulse has to be, well, what does it mean to be human? And what does it mean? What are our shared values? Are there shared values that whether you're from India or Russia, or you're functioning in a Chinese communist situation? I was thinking about this, to your point, that in the Chinese communist country, they despise Western culture.
Yeah.
And so they want a Christianity that is Chinese. And so imagine if you say, well, being a Christian is okay, but it has to be under the auspices of Chinese culture and Chinese language without Western infiltration. But what does that mean? It goes to the fact that people have a shared value concerning language and culture. Imagine you're a Hindu and you believe in the transmigration of souls, and you're a vegetarian and you don't eat at McDonald's. You don't want to eat beef and you don't want to eat chicken. Why? Because you believe with all of your heart in the transmigration of souls, and that eating that chicken or eating that hamburger might be your grandma. So what is the shared value we have? We don't eat grandma. In other words, family matters. And so are there underlying ideological norms that we all embrace? The way I think about it, Bill, is this isn't your values or my values, it's our values. So that's the goal that we get to. We go, tell me what your values are. I'll tell you what my values are. What are our shared values?
Oh, that's a good one. Now, Gino, your phone's beginning to break up with us, and I really appreciate that. Is really interesting. The idea of, we all have that shared value. How do we come together as a community? And that, I think, also plays into very, very nicely. This is how good Gino is. It plays into the idea that Jeff and I were talking about how our diversity can lead to unity. Because Gino was just talking about the fact that we can come with a lot of different diversity, but it is our unity based on our core share values. Gino, I thank you so much. I wish the phone was, going to be behaving a little bit better today. Also, if you like what he was saying, don't miss out. Gino can really open up your mind, your heart, and make you think. And he does it each and every weekday, 4 to 6 p.m. over on our sister station, KRKS. It's AM 990. AM 990, KRKS. Gino, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good day. That was amazing. Again, check out Crosswalk, 4 to 6 p.m. I lurk there oftentimes when I'm driving sometimes because I like what he says. And there's sometimes where he really, really makes me think and kind of look at things from a different perspective. Now, I see that I have Gary from Denver on the board. I want to talk to Gary because Gary often makes me think differently as well. Gary, we're going to see if your phone, I'm choosing a different way to get you on the air. Let's see what happens. Hey, Gary, welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. What's on your mind, sir?
Oh, thanks, Billy. I wanted to make a prediction and see what you thought about it. About what you're going to be talking about this probably next week. I predict the debt ceiling and the CR.
Yeah. What do you think?
Here's Trump is erratic, but he's pretty predictable. And here's what's going to happen, guaranteed. He's going to get them to raise the debt ceiling, either permanently or for at least 2, maybe 4 years, well into his administration. And here's how it's going to come down. They're all talking about, we've got to lower the deficit and blah, blah, blah. Well, Trump doesn't believe that. He wants to blow it out. And here's what they're going to pass. They're going to, the pitch is going to be, well, we're going to increase the deficit for maybe 1 year or 2 years by $4 or $5 trillion, but in years 3 and 4, the economy is going to grow, and then we're going to more than offset that. And so, over 4 years, or they may even stretch it out to 10 years, we're going to reduce the deficit. And then what's going to happen? They will blow it out for 2 years because they passed the debt limit, and then they're going to forget about it, and it's just going to continue to go up because they've kicked the can down the road. The economy won't grow the way they're saying it will, and we'll be off to the races again. Now, if you can remember that, that's what's going to happen.
I've written it down. I'm going to have that. I've written it down, Gary. Now, I got a question for you. I like what you're talking about, the idea of, are they going to raise it for 2, 4, 6 years, or are they going to eliminate the debt ceiling permanently? Do you think, this is what I want to hear from you. We're talking to Gary in Denver, Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Had some technical difficulties, had to disconnect with Jeff in Washington, D.C. When we're talking about the debt ceiling, do you think that the Trump administration, and I'm not necessarily saying Republicans, but the Trump administration would be willing to take that quiver out of the arrow for the future GOP? Meaning, if a Democrat returns back into the White House or they get control of Congress, especially the House where appropriations start, do you think they will give up that potential weapon of, when they're in the minority, a way to gum things up? Because they have used it somewhat effectively, in my mind, over the past decade to get spending cuts by holding the debt ceiling hostage. Do you think they'll take that quiver out of their arrow, Gary?
Yes, I think Trump will push. I think he'll push for just eliminating the debt ceiling all in its entirety forever, because he's a lame duck. He could care less. His interest in the next 4 years is for him and his family to get rich, and for him to do some of the things that he promised. But he has no concern beyond his term in office.
Oh, I like what you're saying there. And you know what? Here's the thing. Okay, between you and me, if Trump was going to just eliminate the debt ceiling permanently, I would actually agree with him, because I think it is a stupid artificial limit. I know why we have it. I know it should constrain the spending in Congress. I don't think it has. And so I hate this idea of every couple of years or so we have this stupid fight, and then we talk about government shutdowns. To me, it becomes more political kabuki theater than doing anything that actually helps the budget. But what are your thoughts on it? Would you cheer the elimination of the debt ceiling, or do you think it still serves a purpose, and why?
I think it should be eliminated, because I think we've got enough, this is hard for me to say, intelligent people in Congress who will keep in mind that we can't continue with this, this deficit spending, and we don't need that as a reminder to take a look at that. Well, whether or not they'll do it, I don't know. And frankly, I don't care, because, I'm okay with your kids and grandkids paying my credit card.
Yeah, that's the thing that I don't think enough people that understand inside of America is where I talk about, oh my gosh, we're saddling your kids with all of this debt. But you've hit on the core issue as far as self-preservation and human psychology. You mean somebody else is paying for it? You mean I get what this is for free? Yeah, the idea of someone else paying for it, even if it is your kids and grandkids, at a psychological level, is okay with us humans because we're always okay with someone else taking the punishment for something that we get that we want.
That's right. We're all about immediate gratification.
Oh, yeah. Microwaves have taught us that. Yes, exactly. And OnlyFans. Hey, Gary, thank you so much. I sure appreciate you. Have a great day. Appreciate you chiming in. You want to sit in and talk? Well, just, open topics. If there's something you want to tell me that I was dumb about earlier today, I do appreciate Spencer calling in earlier today. He corrected me about a fact I had talked about with Donald Trump. I had thought that he had made more money, was worth more when he left office, but he wasn't. And Spencer's 110% correct. And I appreciate that correction. If you've got a correction, you think there's something that came out of my pie hole earlier today that I'm wrong about, give me a call, 303-696-1971. We like to have conversations that nobody else will. If you missed it earlier today, oh boy, did we get into some really, really kind of deep apologetics and religious philosophy, but in a fun way in the first hour, as far as the nature of God, the nature of forgiveness, and some of the core values of my shared religion with Jeff. He and I are both Christians, but we come to different conclusions because we see the implementation of religion a little bit differently. And I honor and I love the way that he comes to it. And he's got a lot of things right, but there's some core things there that we disagree with. If you're in on my conversation, we had a ton of the text. Give me a call, 303-696-1971. I'm going to step aside here in a second. We'll return, and maybe I'll get a chance to talk to you about how unexpectedly Donald Trump, with one of his executive orders, turned us all into women. Yes, all of us have our coming out day. I'm not sure I want to start shaving my legs, but I'll tell you why Donald Trump made us all female with one of his executive orders here in a minute. This is Denver's Talk Leader. You're listening to News Talk 710 KNUS. Hey, Alice in Chains, Man in a Box. Interesting idea about this song because originally Lane Stanley was going to be writing about censorship, but then he went to dinner with a couple of music executives from Colombia. The executives were vegan, and they had a deep conversation about the meat industry. And so Lane was inspired, and he changed the lyrics, but only some of them. He was in the lyrics of that song. It really doesn't make sense because some of it is about censorship, and some of it is about something completely and totally different. I haven't done the meatpacking this week. Yeah, this is Bill Thorpe. Jeff Hunt is live in Washington, D.C., but he had some connection. Basically, our Joe Biden. So we could not connect with him, and that's why I've got some problems getting some of the text messages, etc. You're hanging out with me at least the last few minutes of the show, and I want to chat with Jacqueline, who's calling us all the way from Nebraska. She's got something to share with us. Jacqueline, good morning. Thank you so much for calling. How are you today, and what's on your mind?
Oh, hon, it's cold up here. Listen, you're going to earn your money here.
Excellent.
I want you to tell me what DEI means to you. Because if I'm in a bathroom, Billy, and a man comes in there, I don't care if he calls himself a woman, it ain't going to end pretty. But what does that mean to you? What does DEI mean?
Yeah, DEI to me, and I believe also, I will preface this and say I believe that we can find a large number of cases, not all of them. I'm not even willing to say it's more than 50%, but I think we can find a large number of cases when it has been misapplied. For me, the idea is that with diversity, equity, and inclusion, the workplace ideas, even inside a community, are going to be better served. And what I mean by that is going back to something that Jeff was saying before he had to leave us because of our bad internet connection, about the idea of integration. When immigrants came over here, they would begin to immerse themselves into American culture and society. They would start to we would be a diverse nation, but we come back to that unity. We did have pockets. You would have Germantown. You would have a section of Italians. You'd have Chinatown. You would, because that's comfortable when you immigrate, but then you would integrate into the larger society. And I believe that's what I'm looking for. Is for me, the diversity inside the workplace and inside society is the idea that you have a particular worldview. You see this worldview, but there are other people that have different experiences, and bringing them all together, we can solve problems that we may not have thought of originally. That a diversity of thought and experience makes the group stronger. And I think it's been borne out in part inside of the corporate world, where you see corporations that are more diverse having better success than some that are more monolithic. Now, I'm running out of time. I got about 20 seconds. Briefly, Jacqueline, what does it mean to you?
Well, hon, that means that I don't want men fighting in women's sports. I don't want men coming into the bathroom. If I'm in there with my grandchildren or young women in there, no, don't come in. Now, I don't care about the workplace or anything else, but DEI got California burnt to the ground.
Oh, I'm not sure it got them burnt to the ground. Thanks, Jacqueline. We'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Denver's Talk Leader, KNUS.